Chapter 736. The Hidden Dragon Continent was immensely vast. The center of the continent was vast, with continuous mountain ranges. Some mountains bloomed with five-colored radiance, and some were as sharp as swords. These mountain ranges all had their own features, with abundant spirit energy. The Hidden Dragon Royal Court consisted of the 7 Great Sages' lands and many small forces. The 7 Great Sages' lands were the supreme ruling force of the royal court. The Heavenly Secret Holy Land was the most mysterious holy land among the royal court's holy lands. Compared to the other forces, it was much more mysterious. The Heavenly Secret Holy Land was located in the center of the continent, occupying a valley. The valley was empty, with a winding path. It didn't have the luxurious buildings of the other holy lands, and it didn't have the intimidating city walls that gave people immense pressure. Simple houses were built in every corner of the valley. Just like a blooming fruit, those houses with black tiles and white walls formed a mysterious formation in the valley, which made the energy in the valley circulate unceasingly. With a squeak, the door of a house was pushed open. The Heavenly Secret Saintess, who was wearing a white veil over her face, slowly walked out. She was holding a small star compass in her hand. Her long eyelashes fluttered, slightly trembling. She came to a house, pausing for a while. Then, she heard someone calling her, so she pushed the door open. The room was a completely different world, which was several times bigger than the outside of the house. In the middle of the room was a round star compass around 10 meters in diameter. Countless starlight dots were moving on the compass, twinkling unceasingly, which was really mesmerizing. An old woman with white hair, combed meticulously, with a gentle face, stood around the star compass with her hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes gazed at the star compass, but no one knew what she was looking at. After the Heavenly Secret Saintess came in, she just stood aside quietly. "I know why you're here to see me. You've been to the Valley of Gluttony, and you've seen the person you wanted to see. There are some things that you should let go of," said the old woman, drawing something on the star compass. The Hidden Dragon Continent looks peaceful now, but in fact, it's turbulent and dangerous. If the Great Path's principle didn't suppress it, the brutal creatures of the Netherworld would have invaded the Hidden Dragon Continent, turning it into hell on Earth. The Heavenly Secret Saintess' long eyelashes shivered. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't. "I know you're here to suggest going to the Valley of Gluttony, but this time I won't allow it." The old woman finally lifted her head, her calm eyes looking at the Heavenly Secret Saintess. "You're the first person in 100 years who could trigger the Heavenly Star Catcher Disc. I won't let you take risks." "But, Granny Mo, you know that the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance is a trap," said the Heavenly Secret Saintess. "Don't say any more. Life and death are determined by fate. You can't interfere. The Heavenly Secret Holy Land didn't teach you the Heavenly Secret art to save people. It's to help you control the Heavenly Star Catcher Disc as soon as possible. I have to understand the mysteries of the Heavenly Star Catcher Disc before the Great Path changes. Only then can I have a chance to survive in the future. All the Holy Lands are making preparations. How can you disrupt the Heavenly Secret Holy Land's preparations just because of one person?" The old lady said. The Heavenly Secret Saintess's eyes moved. Eventually, she sighed dispiritedly. "You don't need to care about the Valley of Gluttony. The Great Path's principle is changing. Didn't you see that the starlight on the Heavenly Star Catcher Disc is getting brighter? More and more Great Void Realm experts are appearing in the Hidden Dragon Continent. You know what it means," said the old lady. "Go back. Don't have any thoughts. Understand the mysteries of the Heavenly Star Catcher Disc. Only then can you control your fate." The Heavenly Secret Saintess kept silent for a while. Then, she turned around and left. The old lady leaned on her walking stick, her eyes deep. She made some mysterious hand seals, sending them into the star compass in front of her. Instantly, the star compass glowed brilliantly. Countless stars moved in a mysterious orbit. What? The Valley of Gluttony has a star twinkling? Could it be that something is going to happen in the Tao Ye's inheritance this time? The old woman frowned. Looking at the star that was giving off an extremely bright light, she took a deep breath. In a valley of gluttony, everybody couldn't calm their excitement. It wasn't because of anything else but the exciting chef's challenge that was going to happen tomorrow. That arrogant young chef wanted to challenge 3 chefs from the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony at the same time. This level of arrogance was simply inconceivable. Many people thought that he was crazy. A chef's challenge was something that required a lot of energy. Each chef had to cook one dish. To cook that dish, some chefs had to exhaust themselves mentally and physically, consuming a lot of their spirit, energy, and soul. Ordinary people couldn't endure one chef's challenge. That chef wanted to do 3 chef's challenges at the same time. He was risking his life in the chef's challenge. However, they had to admit that they were looking forward to it. Perhaps they were waiting for Bu Fong to fail, but some were waiting for Bu Fong to create a miracle. Noodle King Restaurant. Today, the restaurant was closed. It wasn't open for business. Outside the kitchen, there were many chefs surrounding the entrance. They looked at the tightly shut kitchen door with complicated expressions and incomparably heavy expressions. They didn't know what Noodle King Ouyang Chinfeng was doing in the kitchen. However, what they could do now was to wait. Not only Noodle King, but J Bamboo Shoot Wong Tong also locked himself in his room, studying and tinkering. Reverie Knife Lu Tao was very confident in his knife skills. This time, he wanted to compete with that scary dark horse chef in knife skills. He wanted to use his knife skills to crush that chef. Meanwhile, in an inn in the Glutton God City, Bu Fong turned off the light in the kitchen, slowly walking out. He didn't do any complicated cultivation. After returning to his room, he lay down and breathed steadily, falling asleep. It was late at night. The autumn wind blew the fallen leaves, rolling in the air. The next day, at dawn, the Glutton God City, which had been quiet for a whole night, was now bustling with noise and excitement. The Glutton Gods building square had welcomed a large number of spectators. They had surrounded the Glutton Gods building. No matter what, today's chef's challenge would be very exciting. 1 against 3. It had never happened before in the history of chef's challenges. More importantly, he was going to challenge 3 top chefs from the Tablet of Gluttony. Noodles, bamboo shoots, and knife skills, it was today's theme. Bu Fong wanted to fight against 3 people at the same time. It was really difficult, and it was inhuman. Even a special grade chef wouldn't dare to do that. After reaching the top 10 of the Tablet of Gluttony, the gap between the chef's cooking standards would shrink. Bu Fong got out of bed and practiced his cooking and knife skills in the kitchen for a while. Then, he brought Xiao Ye and Whitey out of the inn, walking on the streets that were filled with the scent of late autumn. The air had started to cool down. When Bu Fong arrived at the Glutton Gods building square, the square was already packed with people. 2 people and a puppet followed the crowd, slowly walking into the Glutton Gods building square. What greeted them was the ear-splitting noise that reached the sky. The others also took their places. The 3 special grade chefs, the Great Elder, and the 6th Elder were there, sitting on the judges' seats. The stoves on the arena had changed. The arrangement of the stoves was filled with an aura of tit-for-tat. Ouyang Chenfeng, Wong Tong, and Lu Tao's stoves formed a triangle, surrounding Bu Fong's stove in the middle. When the 3 of them connected, their auras were like an unbreakable city wall. Bu Fong calmly swept his gaze over the 3 of them, and a solemn expression appeared on his face. To Bu Fong, 1 against 3 in a chef's challenge was really stressful. However, when there was pressure, there would be motivation. Only then could he improve. Bu Fong wanted to stand on the top of the food chain in this fantasy world, the god of cooking. Only by pressuring himself could he grow faster. Today, Chu Changsheng was wearing a loose robe, his face solemn. He walked to the center of the arena, looking at the 4 chefs. Their auras were expanding, bursting with vigorous fighting will. Thus, he didn't talk much, directly announcing the start of the chef's challenge. However, this chef's challenge was the most nerve-wracking chef's challenge he had ever hosted. 1 against 3. That Bu Fong was a madman. The ingredients have been prepared. This time, everyone will use the same ingredients. It's a competition of cooking skills. I hope you can have a hearty chef challenge, Chu Chongqing said calmly. That's right. The ingredients were pushed out, and dense spiritual energy burst out. A portion of wheat flour, several bamboo shoots that were glowing with a glazed light, and a large pile of spirit fruits. They were the ingredients of this chef's challenge. In the previous chef's challenge, Bufang had directly taken out the Taoyue's meat, which had helped him win easily. This time, he had to limit the use of the Taoyue's meat. After all, it was a cheating tool. Many people didn't know why Bufang could take out the Taoyue's meat. However, once Bufang took out that ingredient, even Yin, you would have a hard time winning. Noodle King Ouyang Chenfeng wore a solemn face. He was a little excited, and the muscles on his face shivered. He had never thought that one day he would stand on the chef's challenge stage against Bufang. Bufang's knife-shaved noodles had shaken him, but he wouldn't back off like that. As the Noodle King, he had his own pride. Buzz, a kitchen knife as thin as a cicada's wing emerged, its light flashing. Jade Bamboo Shoot Wang Tong held a kitchen knife that looked like a white jade, indifferently looking at Bufang. The broken jade knife was a kitchen knife that was close to a famous knife. Reverie Knife Lu Tao gazed at Bufang. His fighting will shot up into the sky. This time, they had to protect the Valley of Gluttony's face. They couldn't lose because they represented the Valley of Gluttony. If they lost to this arrogant little chef in the chef's challenge, the Valley of Gluttony would lose all its face. Green smoke twirled in Bufang's hand. The dragon bone kitchen knife emerged, his eyes indifferent. If you're ready, let's begin. Outside the Valley of Gluttony, the void shook. Then a massive crack appeared, and a cold metal warship slowly sailed out of it. The Heavenly Spring Holy Land's flag fluttered on the warship. An old man carrying the god-slaying giant axe stood on the deck of the ship. His eyes were bright. He was looking at the Gluttony God City. Chapter 737. Rumble, rumble. Thick black smoke diffused. It sounded like an enraged beast or a divine beast was roaring, shaking the entire space. High up in the sky, a massive shadow, shrouded in black smoke, was moving fast. Taking a closer look, one would feel a chill run down their spine. That's because the black shadow was actually a huge skull. The skull opened its mouth and black aura constantly spewed out, causing the skull to swiftly streak through the void. Inside the skull, there were two large eye sockets, and two heads were pressed against one of the eye sockets. Nether King Erha's entire head of hair was blown messily by the wind, and his mouth was trembling. Saint Daughter Ziyun's head was also resting on her eyes. She squinted her beautiful eyes, and her fair skin was trembling slightly like a sparkling jelly. Her exquisite nose was slightly wrinkled, and the corners of her mouth were raised. Brother Ha, why can't you keep the wind away from your luxurious ride? Ziyun squinted, screaming at the top of her lungs. Because of the wind, she had to use all of her strength to shout so that Hades could hear her. Era squinted. His dark eye circles drooped, and he looked weak. He opened his mouth, and the wind poured in, making him squeal. Don't you think it's fun to ride in the wind like this? Hades also shouted. Yeah, it's fun, but I always feel something strange. Saint Daughter Ziyun screamed. It's not strange at all. I slaughtered an abyssal demon and used its head to craft this skull. Look, isn't it more handsome than your spirit boat? The Nether King continued to shout loudly. It's really handsome, but why doesn't it keep the wind away? Normal spirit boats can keep the wind away. Ziyun was still shouting. Hades' nostrils flared, glancing at Ziyun. Don't talk anymore. I'm so tired. Without spicy strips, I want to be baptized by the wind. Ziyun screamed. Brother Ha, we're about to reach the Valley of Gluttony. You can definitely eat the spicy strips you want. Hades' dark eye circles narrowed. Really? You're so awesome. In the sky, the two of them roared at each other in the eyes of the giant skull. The black skull drew a black line in the void as it sped towards the distance, causing space to tremble. Shortly after, it disappeared. In the distance, the majestic Valley of Gluttony gradually came into view. The chefs in the Gluttony Square showed their kitchen knives. That dazzling blade light soared into the sky, causing the entire Gluttony Square's atmosphere to explode at this moment. The clamor was so loud that it seemed like the entire sky was about to be overturned. Noodle King Ouyang Chinfeng's face was solemn. The cicada-winged kitchen knife in his hand was trembling like a cicada's wings, making a slight buzzing sound. Ouyang Chinfeng did not dare to be careless, so he had to give it his all in this match. He had witnessed Bu Feng's cooking skills. Even if it was the noodle dish, Bu Feng wasn't weak. Bu Feng, I won't bully you. The dish I'm going to cook today is the heaven burial noodles that I've improved after one night of contemplation. I hope you won't let me down, said Ouyang Chinfeng. A moment later, the cicada-wing knife in his hand flew up. After twirling the knife for a while, he returned to his stove in the next moment. The main ingredient was wheat flour. However, Ouyang Chinfeng's heaven burial noodles didn't only have wheat flour. His bowl of heaven burial noodles had made him one of the top 10 dishes of the tablet of gluttony. Although he didn't have a competitive mentality, his level wasn't weak at all. He gave Bu Feng a deep look. In the next moment, Ouyang Chinfeng slowly took out his ingredients from the cupboard. The ingredients were the key to a bowl of noodles. However, the ingredients couldn't be too eye-catching. Otherwise, it would steal the noodles' elegance. If that happened, this bowl of noodles would be a failure. Swish! Ouyang Chinfeng's hair fluttered in the wind as he tore down the huge curtain that was covering his back. Looking at the ingredients behind him, the crowd burst into an uproar and let out a clamor. Oh my God, what's that? Those are bird-type spirit beasts. Is Chef Noodle King going to cook his specialty, the heaven burial noodles? The heaven burial noodles? That's the dish he used to defeat the chef who ranked 10th on the tablet of gluttony. The audience was in an uproar. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. Of course, they had heard about Ouyang Chinfeng, the Noodle King. He was famous for his heaven burial noodles. However, it had been a long time since he cooked the heaven burial noodles. Ouyang Chinfeng took out a strip of white cloth and tied it on his forehead. Instantly, his eyes became sharp. Behind me are 99 kinds of bird-type spirit beasts. My heaven burial noodles will use those 99 kinds of spirit beasts as ingredients, said Ouyang Chinfeng in a low voice. Everyone held their breaths, looking at the Noodle King with solemn eyes. Even Yin Yu and the others had solemn faces. The heaven burial noodles were like thunder piercing their ears. Crack! Crack! The cicada-winged knife swung. Knife light flashed, and the cages behind him broke one by one. Swish! Swish! The spirit beasts trapped in the bird-type cages spread their wings and soared up. Feathers fluttered in the air. Their eyes sparkled with a desire for freedom as they soared up into the sky. However, shortly after, those bird-type spirit beasts despaired because the knife light descended from the sky. The heads of those bird-type spirit beasts were chopped off. Thud! Thud! Tens of thousands of knife lights exploded in just a blink of an eye. Countless bird-type spirit beasts were killed. Blood splashed as if it was raining blood. Ouyang Chinfeng's face was cold. His eyes didn't have a beam of emotion, as if he was singing a sad funeral song. Everyone seemed to have forgotten to breathe, and their eyes were filled with terror. No one had thought that Ouyang Chinfeng, who had always been a nice guy, could have such a murderous aura. Bu Feng's eyes shrank. He took a deep breath. Looking at the blood rain around Ouyang Chinfeng and the bird-type spirit beasts wailing and crying. The funeral song created by those wailing and crying shook people's minds. The heaven burial noodles weren't ordinary at all. The cicada-wing knife was as thin as a cicada's wing. It looked like a transparent kitchen knife as it spun in Ouyang Chinfeng's hand. His hand moved so fast that people couldn't see it clearly. He dealt with each bird-type spirit beast falling from the sky. He plucked its feathers, removed its internal organs, and more. Next to him was a big wok. The fire in the stove shot up to the sky, and the hot water in the wok was boiling. He threw the bird spirit beast that he had dealt with into the wok. Gurgle 1, 2, 3. Shortly after, he had thrown all the bird-type spirit beasts into the wok. Those birds weren't big, but they were enough to fill the wok. Ouyang Chunfeng took the lid off the wok and started to boil. On the other side, he didn't stop to rest. He took the prepared white flour, which was a special white flour of the Valley of Gluttony. It was made of special spirit rice, which emitted a sparkling radiance and was really fragrant. Swish! Swish! Ouyang Chunfeng took a bowl of boiling blood. His face was cold as he poured it into the flour. In just a blink of an eye, the white flour was dyed blood red. Everybody was shaken. Ouyang Chunfeng had used blood to knead the flour. Could this kind of noodles be eaten? Many people's faces turned unsightly. It turned out that the heaven burial face was made this way. Bufang was calm, but his eyes were a little surprised. He knew that the heaven burial noodles wasn't ordinary. Don't just pay attention to Ouyang Chunfeng. I'm Broken Jade Knife, Wang Tong. I also want to learn from your cooking skills. Wang Tong took off the basket on his back and his bamboo hat, speaking casually. His eyes were indifferent, and his hair was black and white, which gave people a feeling that he had spent many years in vain. My dish is called Moonset Croquat. I hope you won't disappoint me, Wang Tong said indifferently. A moment later, he held the milk-white, broken jade knife single-handedly. He took the glazed bamboo shoot that he had prepared. Placing the glazed bamboo shoot on the stove, the broken jade knife cut it from different directions. The green skin and leaves of the glazed bamboo shoot were cut, revealing the green bamboo shoot meat. Wang Tong glanced at Bufang, then carefully took out a muddy wine jar from the basket. He sighed, and with nostalgia, he opened the seal. In an instant, a fragrant aroma pervaded the air. Everybody couldn't help but take a deep breath. It wasn't wine, but it was more intoxicating than wine. Wang Tong's gloomy morning dew. Chu Chongqing's eyes focused, looking at the wine jar in Wang Tong's hand. It was the first time he saw Wang Tong take out this wine jar. If it weren't for the chef's challenge, it would be hard to see the famous dishes of the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Speaking of this, even Chu Chongqing had to admit that Bufang had really pressured the top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. Wang Tong didn't say anything. He took out a ladle made of purple bamboo and slowly scooped out a 5-colored liquid from it. Then, he let the liquid drip down along the bamboo shoot meat. As soon as the liquid touched the bamboo shoot meat, it melted in just a blink of an eye. The green bamboo shoot meat radiated 5-colored radiance in just a blink of an eye. Moonset Croquat. It was the dish Wang Tong had prepared to commemorate his deceased wife and daughter, which was full of sorrow. The skills of those chefs had ignited the enthusiasm of the audience. They were the real top 10 chefs of the Tablet of Gluttony. If they were serious, they could absolutely crush that arrogant little chef. Reverie Knife Lu Tao didn't move. He just sneered, looking at Bufang. It seemed he wasn't in a hurry to take action. He wanted to compete with Bufang on his knife skill, so he wasn't in a hurry. Perhaps Bufang would not be able to last until the time to compete with him. Bufang's eyes slightly narrowed, and the muscles on his body slightly trembled. That was because of excitement. This kind of excitement made Bufang's emotionless face twitch. He opened his mouth and exhaled. Bufang lifted his head, his eyes blazing. Come, let me feel the pressure. Roar. His true energy was full. Instantly, the dragon bone kitchen knife bloomed with gold radiance. A dragon roar reverberated through the 9 heavens. Everybody was bewildered. They seemed to see a long, gold dragon hovering above them. Outside the Valley of Gluttony, the warship moved horizontally, releasing ear-piercing explosions. The warship didn't stop to take a break. It continued to crush the Valley of Gluttony. The guards on the Gluttony God City roared, releasing the true energy from their bodies. The old man carrying the giant god slaying axe stood in front of the warship, talking casually. Kill. Stop them. Kill them all. Swoosh. The golden armor guards behind him responded immediately, shooting out. A moment later, blood light shot up into the sky above the Gluttony God City's wall. Murderous aura filled the air. Chapter 738. God-Slaying Weapon. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled, gazing at the giant axe in the old man's hand. All of a sudden, however, It was the best battleship of the heavenly spring Holy Land, which had endless power. It directly smashed the city wall, sending gravel and rubble everywhere. Chu Changxing's eyes were as cold as lightning. His aura fluctuated, and his face was dark and gloomy. Looking at the bloody street, the flame of anger in his heart surged unceasingly. The old man was enraged. He wielded the god-slaying axe single-handedly, drawing an arc in the air, aiming at the approaching figure. Inside the skulls, there were two figures shouting at each other loudly. Experts from the Holy Lands appeared. Their eyes sparkled as they looked at the Valley of Gluttony. The Glutton God City was broken, and the city wall was crumbling. They knew the calamity of the Valley of Gluttony was about to begin. What? Chu Changxing's eyes focused. His face became cold, and his murderous aura shot out. You iron lump, you dare to covet my god-slaying weapon. You and die. A moment later, the metal wings on Xiao Bai's back opened. Clanging sounds resounded, and the metal light was dazzling. Old thing from the heavenly spring Holy Land. You must die. All of a sudden, Xiao Bai's body moved. A big hand that looked like a leaf fan slammed down on the old man's head. In the Glutton Gods building square, everybody was watching the chef's challenge. They didn't know what was happening outside the Glutton Gods building. Did he have to host this chef's challenge again? Xiao Bai's eyes, which were originally very gentle, suddenly changed at this moment. They turned from red to grayish-white. Ouyang Chenfeng used beast blood to knead the dough, so he would use good wine to knead the dough. The heaven burial noodles emitted a sorrowful aura, which made Bu Fong frown. If so, he would cook a dish with the same sorrowful aura. It was just a puppet. The old man took a step forward, and his aura rose unceasingly. The old man's eyes were like torches, gazing at the tall city wall of the Glutton God City. On the city wall, the massacre was still ongoing. The sixth elder's mustache slightly tilted up. It can't be. Is the great elder planning to be a hands-off shopkeeper again? The elder from the heavenly spring Holy Land raised his hand and grabbed the god-slaying axe on his back. He slowly lowered it as his aura continued to rise. Looking up, Xiaoyu couldn't help but let go of Xiao Bai's thigh and took a step back, because he discovered that the rod in Xiao Bai's hand was actually a god-slaying weapon. Sword radiance overflowed in all directions. An expert flying on a sword was rushing over. Damn it! However, he didn't affect the chef's challenge. With a step, he disappeared from his spot. On the metal warship, the old man lifted his head. His eyes were like torches as he crazily gazed at Chu Changsheng, who was soaring in the sky. The corners of his mouth parted, his murderous aura diffusing everywhere. Xiao Bai's eyes flickered. In the next moment, his body suddenly changed, only to see a rumbling sound. A gale howled, and a black wind swept across. Boom! Chu Changsheng, you've finally come out. An expert stepped on the air, his domineering aura diffusing everywhere. Xiaoyu hugged Xiao Bai's thigh, standing in the distance. An uproar arose. The residents of the Glutton God City screamed in fear. Was it the enemy's invasion? The sound of something tearing through the air resounded. The void seemed to be unable to bear the heavy burden. The elder was half naked, and he carried a huge god-slaying axe on his back. There were many patterns on the axe's head, and it was extremely mysterious, as if it could attract people's attention. Ouyang Chenfeng's heaven burial noodles couldn't be compared to ordinary noodles. If Bu Fong wanted to win, he had to show his true abilities. A giant skull fearlessly dashed over from afar. Its metal wings spread open, sparkling under the radiance. Its round head, round body, and ash-gray mechanical eyes, cries of horror resounded throughout the long street. Which expert from the Holy Land had come? The old man wanted to take revenge, but now he was enraged. His murderous aura surged as he wanted to chop that iron puppet into pieces. He found an oppressive aura, and a shadow dashed over. Didn't only the Holy Lands have god-slaying weapons? How could they have a puppet? Was that puppet one of them? The golden armor guard was cold and solemn. He held a weapon in his hand, dashing fast. Each time he swung his weapon, he would chop the enemy into pieces. Light spun on his abdomen. A moment later, a scarlet metal stick emerged. Last night, he had considered carefully and decided on the noodles he wanted to cook today. However, he wasn't qualified to host this chef's challenge. There was a loud bang. The elder's galloping body suddenly trembled. The old man from the heavenly spring holy land was bewildered. A moment later, he was enraged. His face was so dark that it could drip water. He turned his head to look. Above his head, a white soul ladder began to congregate. Buzz, the old man was startled, looking at the metal stick in Xiao Bai's hand. His scalp went numb. She looked at the chef's challenge on the stage, and curiosity flashed in her eyes. Her face was also filled with envy. Looking at everyone cooking, she felt a little happy in her heart. She also wanted to cook. That metal stick was covered with patterns. Chu Changxing's white hair and beard fluttered in the air. His clothes exploded, and a rumbling sound reverberated from his body. His blood and energy were like waves, constantly beating the shore. Bufang's face became colder. The old man stood on the bow of the warship, his face cold. His eyes gazed at the giant gluttony god's building as he directed the warship to rush toward that person. He took out the white flower he had prepared. The old man was enraged. The guards of the Valley of Gluttony were fighting bravely. Their bodies were dyed in blood, and they roared. They swung their weapons and charged toward the enemy. They wanted to use their bodies to perish together with the enemy. You want to die? Xiaoyu was bewildered. What happened? Why did Xiao Bai go berserk all of a sudden detected the aura of the god-slaying equipment? Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled, his voice cold. On the Gluttony Square, the clamor in the Gluttony Square seemed to have suppressed the battle cries in front of the city gate. The fan-like hand rose, patting Xiaoya's head. Xiaoya was a little bewildered. Bufang leisurely took out the Frost Blaze, a path-understanding brew from the system dimensional bag. He poured the clear wine into the white flower and began to knead it. All of a sudden, an explosive shout reverberated in the sky. The war god stick was in his hand. Boom! Boom! This puppet that came out of nowhere dared to covet the god-slaying equipment that Lord Amethyst Elder had given him. Outside the Valley of Gluttony, however, there were the elite golden armor guards of the heavenly spring holy land who had been baptized in blood. Each of them was an expert in fighting and killing. In just a moment, blood splashed on the city wall, and corpses littered the ground. No doubt, in this battle, the Gluttony God City was breached. As they were the creators of this calamity, they had to get a share of the loot. Bufang didn't know about Xiao Bai's change. At this moment, he was unprecedentedly solemn, putting his heart and soul into cooking. Heavenly Spring Holy Land, you've gone too far. Xiao Bai's aura burst out all of a sudden. Who asked the Valley of Gluttony to control something it couldn't protect? An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. Everybody was bewildered. What was going on? Sharp spikes emerged on his round head, and his back was also covered with many spikes. His body became ferocious in just a blink of an eye, and a murderous aura filled the air. Chu Changxing looked at the old man, as if he was looking at an idiot. Who the F*** CK is on our side? All of a sudden, many experts were bewildered. Kill! The old man roared. The golden armor guards underneath also released their auras, forming a battle formation. They soared up into the sky, dashing toward Chu Changsheng. You dare! A figure stepped through the air, incomparably powerful, towering and majestic, standing proudly in the heavens. Bufang took a deep breath. Fight poison with poison, turning the sorrow into a river. It was a massacre. The warship moved forward unceasingly, crushing the houses. Blood splashed everywhere, and the stench of blood filled the air. Chu Changsheng, who was wearing a long robe and watching the chef's challenge, suddenly felt something. His brows furrowed. He seemed to sense something, tilting his head to look outside. Facing Ouyang Chenfeng, whose aura had changed greatly, and Wang Tong, who had experienced many vicissitudes of life, Bufang felt a wave of pressure. The metal warship fiercely hit the Gluttony God City. Instantly, The light of the formation on the city wall sparkled, trying to stop the warship's attack. Some experts in the Valley of Gluttony had woken up, and they joined the defending army to resist the enemy's invasion. The golden armor guards opened the way, and blood splashed everywhere. Corpses lay everywhere. Chu Changxing's eyes focused. An ice-cold metal warship slowly moved forward. The Heavenly Spring Holy Land's flag fluttered. The warship continued to move forward, unceasingly crushing the people on the long street of the Gluttony God City. Fresh blood sprayed all over the ground. On one side, blood flowed like a river, while on the other side, it was noisy and clamorous. It was a startling contrast. The warship's pressure was so oppressive. Incomparably loud, the terrifying pressure surged. Was it the beginning of chaos? The god-slaying axe glowed under the sunlight. Chu Changsheng clenched his fists, making cracking sounds. Chu Changsheng didn't expect that Xiao Bai would appear all of a sudden. Moreover, his target was the god-slaying weapon in the opponent's hand. Who's there? What kind of monster did Bu Feng raise? Chu Changsheng stood up from his seat, and his terrifying aura expanded. Xiao Bai's metal wings flapped. With a screech, Xiao Bai's figure disappeared into the distance, dashing toward the outside of the Gluttony God's building. Boom! The old man rolled his eyes in rage. The one who attacked him was a puppet. Indeed, Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes twinkled, and he swung his stick. Chu Changxing's eyes were cold. The muscles on his body bulged, and his veins bulged. He looked so ferocious. There was a loud bang. The elders of the Valley of Gluttony opened their eyes, taking in a breath of cold air. The people from the Heavenly Spring Holy Land couldn't endure it anymore. Begin the slaughter. The fan-like hand shrank, then hovered in the air. Thinking about that, the old man furrowed his brows. We're on the same side. Don't attack. Chapter 739. The dough made of blood-colored flour spun in Ouyang Chinfeng's hand. Waves of energy swirled around, making the dough shine brilliantly. Rumble, rumble. The boiling wok began to boil. The lid of the wok trembled, and steam gushed out from the wok. Ouyang Chinfeng's face was solemn. His eyes were cold, devoid of any emotion. This was a far cry from his usual gentle appearance. Many people rarely saw this side of him. Swish! The blood-colored flour swirled. In the next moment, the dough in Ouyang Chinfeng's hand was stretched. He reached out a finger, pointing at the dough. With a wave of his hand, the dough spun in the air. As it spun, a strand of noodles as thin as a dragon's whisker was pulled out, spinning and spreading continuously. Soon, the noodles around Ouyang Chinfeng's body were like blooming flowers, fluttering and dancing. As the flower swirled, it actually emitted a strange beauty. Everyone was silent and immersed. When they knew that the flower was dyed with blood, they were shocked. However, at this moment, there was only admiration. The strands of noodles danced like ribbons, extremely gorgeous. All of a sudden, the noodles were swept up, falling into Ouyang Chinfeng's hand. The blood-colored noodles emitted a strange brilliance. After placing the noodles on the stove, Ouyang Chinfeng walked towards the boiling cauldron. There were 99 spirit birds simmering inside. He lifted the lid of the wok, and a wave of surging meaty energy rushed up to the sky. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, feeling that it was a ghastly sight. Ouyang Chinfeng fished out all the spirit birds. The meat of the spirit birds was half-cooked, and steam was rising from their bodies. However, Ouyang Chinfeng didn't seem to want to end it like this. He poured away all the soup he had cooked for the first time. Then he put the spirit birds back into the wok and began to cook. This time, during the cooking process, he constantly sprinkled the cut spirit herbs into the wok. When the herbs were sprinkled on the spirit bird's meat, the color of the meat became tempting. Was this the soup base for cooking noodles? For a bowl of noodles, besides the noodles, the soup base was also important. This soup base was very important, no matter if it was used to cook noodles or to make broth. According to Ouyang Chinfeng's method, he planned to use 99 spirit birds as the soup base, which was a test of his skills. However, in the next moment, Ouyang Chinfeng poured away the soup base again. The second time, He gave up on the soup base. For the third time, he boiled the soup base. This time, he added many spiritual herbs. These spiritual herbs actually emitted a unique fragrance along with the boiling of the soup. Swish, swish. 99 spirit birds were taken out. The cicada blade spun in his hand at an extremely fast speed. It was as thin as a cicada's wings, and every time it slashed, a piece of soft meat would be cut off from the abdomen of the spiritual beast bird, turning it into a thin slice. Bufong only took a thin slice from each spirit beast bird and put them together. 99 slices were instantly cut into powder by the cicada blade. Ouyang Chunfeng collected the powder-like pieces of minced meat for later use. With a shake of his hand, he scooped up the blood-colored noodles. The blood-soaked noodles had a unique smell of blood. Ouyang Chunfeng's face didn't change. He carefully put the noodles into the boiling soup base. The soup base was very fragrant, with the aroma of spirit herbs and the rich fragrance of the meat. When the two were mixed, it had a special taste. Swish! As soon as the noodles were put in, Ouyang Chunfeng let them swim in the pot. He shook them, and the boiling soup base was reflected in his eyes. Suddenly, Ouyang Chunfeng's hand shook, and he pulled the noodles out. The noodles spun in the air, and the soup splashed. 5 small bowls were prepared, and they were placed one by one. The red noodles exuded a strange beauty, and after being soaked in the soup, they shone brightly. After putting them into the 5 bowls, Ouyang Chunfeng scooped out the soup and poured it into the bowls. Swish! The clear soup was as clear as spring water. When it was poured into the bowls, the noodles became plump. Of course, it wasn't over yet. Ouyang Chunfeng picked up the minced meat, which had almost turned into fine powder. He sprinkled it into the bowls, and shortly after, it blended into the soup. His hand reached out, and the cicada-winged knife appeared in his hand. He cut a big spirit herb into slices, putting several slices into a bowl, and then put them on a plate. The heaven burial noodles were done. The heaven burial noodles, which everyone had heard so much about, was just a simple bowl of noodles. However, people had seen Ouyang Chunfeng cook, so they knew how much effort he had put into this simple bowl of noodles. Ouyang Chunfeng took a step back, taking off the cloth band on his forehead. His hair cascaded, brushing his face. Ouyang Chunfeng's ice-cold eyes regained their gentleness. His lips curled into a smile as he calmly looked at Bufong. His dish was done. Next, it was Bufong's turn. Of course, Bufong didn't know that Ouyang Chunfeng had finished cooking. As a matter of fact, his noodles were almost at the final stage. The heaven burial noodles were sorrowful. People who ate it couldn't help but shed tears, feeling the deep pain of a funeral. It was created by the sorrowful emotion of 99 spirit birds dying in an instant. Bufong decided to fight poison with poison. He didn't want to cook something that could make people happy. Quite the contrary, he wanted to cook something that could make people feel sorrowful. He wanted to make the judges who tasted his food feel sorrowful like a river. Sorrowful noodles. It was the bowl of noodles that Bufong wanted to cook this time. It was a plain noodle dish with ordinary ingredients, but the cooking method was very different. No matter what, it was a noodle with a thick, sorrowful emotion. The chef had to feel the sorrow while cooking, sending it to the noodles, making it sorrowful and sorrowful. The black turtle constellation wok floated. Bufong didn't show any emotion, but his eyes had a gleam of sorrow. The wok was burning red. Bufong took 5 spirit beast eggs he had prepared, gently breaking them. The egg juice burst out, falling into the wok. Sizzle, sizzle. Instantly, the egg aroma rushed up. The aroma assailed their nostrils. However, Bufong still wore a sorrowful face. His emotions were mixed with his mental force, mixing bit by bit. Eventually, it seeped into the dish. Although it was a simple fried egg, it gave off an extraordinary feeling. 5 small steaks were also fried in the oil. The meat on the steaks was shivering, as though the meat was stretching. Of course, it wasn't Taodai meat. The chef's challenge had a rule that the level of the ingredients couldn't be too high. Of course, as chefs, they knew that. If the taste of the ingredients was too good, it would cover the taste of the noodles. Then, this bowl of noodles would be a failure. Thus, under normal circumstances, noodle dishes wouldn't use ingredients that were too high grade. The shining white noodles were in the wok. However, his wok's base was totally different from Ouyang Chenfeng's. At the bottom of the wok, there were a few pieces of spirit herb roots churning, but there was nothing else. What was being boiled was just plain water and soup. However, of course, Bufang wouldn't let the soup be that simple. He took out a crystal jar, removing the lid. Bufang sniffed, and his brows twitched a little. It was a spicy smell that made people feel sad. Bufang sighed, then dropped a drop of abyssal chili sauce into the soup. In just a blink of an eye, the clear soup became fiery red with a strong, spicy smell. And Bufang also added a drop of abyssal chili sauce on the fried egg and the fried steak. The chili sauce smelled good, and it made the dishes emit a different kind of fragrance. After the noodles were put into the wok, they rolled in the soup. After the noodles had a ruddy color, Bufang scooped them up. Water splashed, and the shining white noodles emitted luster and steam. Every time he hit it, the noodles would shake a little. He put the clean noodles into the prepared blue and white porcelain bowl, then covered it with a piece of steak. Finally, he placed the fried egg, which looked a little cute and piping hot, on top of it. In the center of the fried egg, he added a drop of abyssal chili sauce, then sprinkled some chopped green onions. A bowl of overwhelming sadness noodles, which looked so simple, was done. Bufang wiped the water on his hands, looking at the bowl of noodles, his face a little complicated. He liked to cook dishes that made people feel happy, and the mood of the dish was related to the chef's own mood. In order to make this bowl of noodles, Bufang needed to fuse his melancholy emotions into it. Bufang didn't like this kind of sad feeling. He felt that the purpose of cooking was to make the customers feel happy. Thus, Bufang thought that he wouldn't cook this bowl of noodles for the second time. Bufang let out a long breath. Just like that, his first dish was done. As for his next opponent, it was Bufang's turn. Bufang lifted his head, looking at the emotionless Wang Tong, who seemed to be tortured by the passing of time. His half-white, half-black hair was full of vicissitudes. At this moment, he was finishing the dish, neither happy nor sad. Rumble. The giant skull kept dashing, and it couldn't stop. Many experts widened their eyes in astonishment as they watched the giant skull collide with them. Which holy land did it belong to? With a loud bang, the skull smashed into the ground, plowing a deep ditch, and the soil on the ground was sent flying. However, the skull was still intact. Two figures crawled out of it. Cough, cough, cough. Little Nian, come out quickly. You've landed perfectly and safely, said Hades Era, standing on the skull's head. Saint Daughter Ziyun emerged from the hole and breathed in the fresh air. Her beautiful face was filled with excitement. Finally, we're here. Young man, you said that there are spicy strips here. Don't deceive, eyes pure feelings. Hades gave Ziyun a sidelong glance. Ziyun's long eyelashes shivered. Big brother Ha, what are you talking about? How could Ziyun deceive you? Without the spicy strips, Ziyun will be yours. Ziyun's words were righteous. Hades Era looked at her with dark circles under his eyes. The corners of his mouth rose. Young man, you wish. The two of them talked to each other, not caring about the surprised gazes of the surrounding experts. It should be known that the experts hovering in the air were existences from the Hidden Dragon Royal Court's great sage's lands. They looked at the skull descending from the sky, watching the two figures crawl out of it, bickering. All of a sudden, an expert's eyes widened. Oh, isn't that Saint Daughter Ziyun? Why is that little ancestor here? That expert was an almighty existence from the heavenly spring holy land. He came here to help the old man take the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. However, before he could do anything, he encountered such a situation. Many people from the other holy lands looked at him strangely. The heavenly spring amethyst elder's daughter, Saint Daughter Ziyun, she was pulling a stranger's arm in front of so many people. If Amethyst Elder knew that, would he vomit blood? Everybody knew how precious Amethyst Elder was to his daughter. Chapter 740. Huhan's eyes widened when he saw the thick god-slaying rod being brandished at him. God-slaying weapon? What the heck? After a long time, that iron puppet had taken out a god-slaying stick from its stomach. They were all members of the Holy Land, and they had the same goal. They were on the same side. Huhan opened his mouth to scream, but Xiao Bai's ash-gray eyes twinkled. A moment later, the god-slaying stick swung horizontally. The air seemed to burn at this moment. The lines on the god-slaying stick emerged, igniting a blazing flame. A terrifying sense of danger shrouded him instantly. Huhan didn't think that this iron puppet could give him such a terrifying sense of danger. The god-slaying axe spun, and the red axe head radiated radiance. A sharp aura shot out from the axe head. It was so fast and mighty. After a loud explosion, the void trembled fiercely. Huhan felt his entire hand go numb at this moment. The web between his thumb and forefinger was in so much pain that it was almost torn. His entire arm was about to be smashed. "We're on the same side," shouted Huhan. He came to find Chu Changsheng to take revenge. He didn't have time to tangle with a puppet. Moreover, that puppet was holding a god-slaying weapon. At first glance, he knew it was from the Holy Land. They were on the same side. Could they not attack each other? They were all from the Holy Land. They needed to be rational. However, Xiao Bai didn't answer him. What answered him was the god-slaying stick with the sky-piercing flame. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Xiao Bai's body was ferocious. The armor on his body had sharp protrusions that looked like long sabers. The spikes on his back also jutted out, looking terrifying and savage. Upon closer inspection, Huhan became more and more apprehensive. That puppet wasn't ordinary at all. Which Holy Land could create such a puppet? It was an existence equal to the divine soul realm with a 6-step soul ladder. Adding the god-slaying stick, it could even fight against a divine soul realm expert with a 7-step soul ladder. Huhan's power was just SOSO. Don't push your luck. This time, I'm here to find Chu Changsheng to take revenge. If you continue to force me, I'll definitely cut you into 8 pieces. Huhan roared, and the aura on his body continued to rise. The god-slaying axe in his hand suddenly burst forth with a brilliant brilliance. Chu Changsheng indifferently looked at Huhan, his face expressionless. Looking for him, this guy might not know that he had become an almighty powerhouse, but in fact, not many powerhouses in the Holy Land knew about it. This was a good opportunity to trick the Holy Land. However, Chu Changsheng wasn't that optimistic. He knew that the Holy Land wouldn't send just one Hu. Since Huhan dared to attack like this, it was obvious that he had already decided to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Valley of Gluttony. Behind Huhan, there was definitely a powerful expert overseeing the situation. This time, it was the Valley of Gluttony's true survival crisis. It was a pity that Bufang didn't want to give Xiaoya to him. Otherwise, he would have brought Xiaoya to the inheritance land of the Valley of Gluttony. Don't let those greedy bastards from the Holy Lands have any chance. The Valley of Gluttony's inheritance couldn't be given away that easily. If those people wanted the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance, they had to pay a big price. As Chu Changsheng thought about it, the murderous aura in his eyes became colder. Looking at the golden armor guards slaughtering people in the Gluttony God City, the anger in his chest increased. Huhan had Bufang's iron puppet to hold him back. As for those ants, I'll clean them up before the almighty experts from the Heavenly Spring Holy Land take action. I'll make the Heavenly Spring Holy Land bleed. After I clean those ants, the chef's challenge in the Gluttony Square should be over. Although Bufang strong, facing the Heaven Burial Face and the Moonset Crying Crow, he won't have a chance. Moreover, Reverie Knife Lu Tao is eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. Chu Changsheng's eyes twinkled. His white beard and hair fluttered in the wind. After Bufang loses the chef's challenge, Xiaoyu will follow me according to our agreement. At that time, I'll take her to the inheritance land. As Chu Changsheng thought that, his eyes became more resolute. A moment later, he took a step forward. His body disappeared from his spot as if he had shrunk the ground to an inch. He dashed toward the golden armor guards who were slaughtering people. Boom! Chu Changsheng suddenly appeared in front of a golden armor guard. It was a golden armor guard at the divine soul realm with a one-step soul ladder. When he saw Chu Changsheng, he was bewildered. He lifted his head, his mind shivering. The murderous aura in Chu Changsheng's eyes rocketed. He slapped him. With a loud bang, the golden armor on the golden armored guard's body instantly burst apart, and his entire head exploded from the slap. Without any power to resist, he was killed instantly. After killing a golden armor guard with lightning speed, Chu Changsheng didn't care at all. His body moved horizontally one more time. In just a blink of an eye, he turned into shadows and attacked the golden armor guards. As Chu Changsheng was called an almighty, it was easy for him to kill the golden armor guards. In the sky, Hu Han's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The flame of anger in his chest burst out. "You iron puppet! You court death! Chu Changsheng, if you have the guts, fight me to the death." He held the god-slaying axe with one hand, and the divine energy on the axe head dispersed. However, what he got in response was Chu Changsheng's indifferent smile and White E's war god stick, which had turned into 9 sticks to attack him together. This puppet. Damn it! The more Hu Han fought, the angrier he became. His fighting power was getting stronger, but he was also more frightened. What the heck? Why is this puppet's power increasing? Boom! The war god stick spun in the air, and Xiao Bai grabbed it. The metal wings on Xiao Bai's back flapped. His ash-gray eyes shot out an incomparably sharp light. The patterns on the war god stick surged. A moment later, the war god stick became thicker and bigger in front of people's frightened eyes. The moon fell, crows cried, and frost filled the sky. Wang Tong's face was mournful. The broken jade knife in his hand spun unceasingly. The food ingredients in his hand became fragrant dishes. A glazed bamboo shoot tower was reflected in the blue soup, indistinctly visible. The blue soup emitted cold air like a cold pond in the middle of the night. Under the moonlight, it looked like broken gold. There were indeed specks of golden light swirling in the blue soup. It was Wang Tong's specialty, the broken jade knife Wang Tong. He used to be a genius chef on the tablet of gluttony. That year, he had stirred up an uproar, and he even had the chance to become a special grade chef. However, perhaps God was jealous of his talent. When Wang Tong's ambition was high, when he returned to his hometown in glory, his poor wife and daughter's family had been destroyed, and his wife and daughter had died tragically. After that day, Wang Tong's character changed greatly. He massacred the forces that had destroyed his family. After one night, half of his hair turned white, and he returned to the Valley of Gluttony to live in seclusion. His ranking on the Table of Gluttony also dropped as he went into seclusion. Of course, he was still infatuated with his culinary skills, but his culinary skills had become extremely sorrowful. Bu Fong had finished the overwhelming sadness noodles, and he was about to cook a new dish. The overwhelming sadness noodles were served, competing with Ouyang Chinfeng's heaven burial noodles. Everybody was curious and expectant. Bu Fong's overwhelming sadness face was very ordinary. So ordinary that it made people wonder if this fellow had exhausted his limited abilities. It was because the difficulty of that noodles was really low, and it wasn't like Ouyang Chinfeng's heaven burial noodles, which was so gorgeous that it made people exclaim in admiration. Of course, they didn't jump to conclusions because they weren't sure if there was something else in Bu Fong's bowl of noodles. When the noodles were served, of course, Bu Fong didn't think about the noodles anymore. Instead, he focused on the glass bamboo shoots, preparing to cook the second dish. Bu Fong had prepared this dish. He lifted his head to look at Wang Tong, who was filled with sorrow. Bu Fong exhaled gently. With Ouyang Chinfeng's heaven burial face, he could choose to fight poison with poison, making the sorrow flow like a river. However, if he chose to fight poison with Wang Tong in the chef's challenge, Bu Fong would definitely be beaten black and blue. After all, Wang Tong's sorrow was truly too strong, and it had even become a form of his power. A chef with power was a rare existence. Although a chef with power wasn't necessarily better than a special grade chef, when it came to their specialty, they were almost invincible. Even a special grade chef couldn't defeat them. And what Bufang needed to do now was to break Wang Tong's power. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a chance. To break Wang Tong's power, he needed to use his own spear to attack his own shield. Only when the contradiction collided would he have a chance to tear a hole. Since Wang Tong's dish was about sorrow, he had to do it from another aspect. He needed to focus on life. The spring bamboo shoots had thick vitality, which would grow and multiply unceasingly. Bufang wanted to wash away that sorrow. Bufang's eyes flashed with a bright light. His eyes were so bright that Wang Tong, who was immersed in sorrow, couldn't help but feel something. He lifted his head, looking at Bufang in astonishment. Wang Tong's body seemed to have sorrow hovering around him. He looked at Bufang. My sorrow caused my personality to change overnight. It caused half of my hair to turn white. It caused me to condense my own power. What will you use to break my power? Wang Tong faintly murmured as he gently exhaled a breath of air. Then, he didn't mind Bufang anymore. He took out a small porcelain cup, which was filled with a soup made from the gloomy morning dew in the porcelain jar. Swish! The broth was shredded, as if it had turned into a silk thread. It poured down and dripped onto the round blue broth in front of the bamboo shoot tower on the porcelain plate. That broth immediately rippled. Specks of multicolored light filled the air. The moonset crow's caw is done. Wang Tong. On the judges' platform, there were only 4 judges left. However, when Wenren Shang saw Chu Chongsheng leave, he shamelessly stepped forward with his body reeking of alcohol. He took a seat and became the 5th judge. In front of them was a bowl of noodles. The clear broth and the blood-red noodles were a ghastly sight to behold, but the smell coming from the noodles made one squint their eyes involuntarily. Ouyang Chinfeng's heaven burial noodles. Moreover, it was the improved version. Wenren Shang knew that Ouyang Chinfeng had used no more than 36 spirit birds to make the heaven burial noodles, which was much less than this time's 99 birds. Apparently, Ouyang Chinfeng had used all of his strength and energy for this chef's challenge. However, he didn't know how it tasted. Wenren Shang picked up his chopsticks, touching them on the table to make them smooth. Then, he picked up the noodles. Swish! Swish! The blood-colored noodles emitted hot steam and were exposed to everyone's faces. The audience in the Glutton Gods building held their breaths, gazing at the projection formation in the sky. The formation was projecting the steaming hot noodles. Slurp! Wenren Shang opened his mouth, sucking hard. The blood-red noodles jumped into his mouth. Chapter 741. Brother Ha. It seems something big is happening inside. We shouldn't get in there. Zian looked at Hades' era, speaking gingerly. He stroked his chopsticks, licking his lips. His eyes looked expectant as he picked up Bufang's overwhelming sadness noodles and shoved it into his mouth. Old Ling's aura changed instantly. He took a step forward, hovering high in the sky. His eyes were like lightning, looking at a far distance. This was a delicacy that could affect the dishes. It was enough. At this moment, Hades didn't hear Old Ling. His eyes were half opened, with the black circles emerging above them. He gazed at the Glutton God City. That familiar feeling. Could it be? Not only him, the other judges also did the same. They closed their eyes and felt the sorrow flowing in their mouths. That sorrow made them feel heavy. Yen Yu sneered, his mocking eyes looking at the bowl of noodles. The sorrow of burying the sky and burying the earth made Wenren Shang raise his head, close his eyes, and let out a long breath. They loved him because he was delicious, and they hated him because he was cruel. Apparently, they didn't like this bowl of noodles. When the blood-red noodles entered their mouths, they didn't have the bloody smell they had imagined. Instead, they had a faint fragrance. It wasn't thick, but it was really elegant. Some people even had tears in their eyes. A drop of crystal-clear liquid rolled down their cheeks. Oppressive, heavy, negative energy burst out. Wenren Shang looked at the bowl of noodles in front of him with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. The corners of Wenren Shang's mouth curled into a faint grin. Wenren Shang held the bowl of noodle soup, blowing it gently. Then, he gulped down a mouthful of the soup. Sizzle. The clear soup splashed everywhere. It had begun. What are you afraid of? Follow I. I will show you what true deliciousness is, said Hades. The experts from the other holy lands also had sharp eyes. They moved, dashing toward the Valley of Gluttony. It was the aura of the young man who had created the spicy strips, Bufong. Thinking about the spicy strips, Hades' era cheered up. Worthy of the heaven burial noodles. Ouyang Chunfeng is worthy of the Noodle King title. Slurp. Right when Old Ling was about to teach Hades' era a lesson, his face became stern. He turned to look at the glutton god city, where a big explosion was happening. As his voice faded, the space beneath Old Ling's feet began to crumble, and his figure became blurry in the air. The adorable poached egg was placed on the surface, covering the entire mouth of the bowl. The poached egg was like a smiling face, gulp, gulp. Saint Daughter Ziyun's expression changed when she heard the old man's tone. Wenren Shang's skin wrinkled. He couldn't help but have goosebumps. The audience was silent. They couldn't understand the sorrow of the heaven burial mask, but they could see the heaviness on the judges' faces. This bowl of noodles was called Melancholy Ecstasy. Where was melancholy and where was ecstasy? Of course, Bufong didn't know that his noodles had caused a huge commotion. At this moment, he was fully focused on cooking the dish in his hand. The other judges were also speechless. They didn't know what to say. Spicy strips? No. Indeed, the heaven burial mask was cruel. With a mouthful of broth and a mouthful of noodles, they felt as if they had fallen into the mournful cries of 99 spirit birds before they died. That aura caused all the pores on his body to open up involuntarily, gushing with energy. Old Ling looked at Saint Daughter Ziyun lovingly. A moment later, his eyes became cold and arrogant. He glanced at Hades indifferently, his eyes assessing him. It was the sorrow of the 99 spirit birds. It was like a big rock pressing on their hearts. The almighty expert took a deep breath. He didn't care about the mocking looks from the other experts around. His body flashed, appearing by Saint Daughter Ziyun. The others also put down their bowls. Everyone had a solemn expression on their faces. Their silence was filled with solemnity. At this moment, Ziyun wasn't a fool. She knew that something big was about to happen in the Valley of Gluttony. When Renshang swallowed the noodles with his chopsticks, his eyes narrowed. Under the sunlight, the blood-colored noodles emitted a dazzling radiance. It was too beautiful to take in all at once. She suddenly regretted bringing Brother Ha to this troublesome place, and the elders of the Holy Land had bumped into them. Old Ling, why are you here? Saint Daughter Ziyun was bewildered when she saw the almighty expert of the heavenly spring Holy Land. She forced a smile. After Wenren Shang had eaten a mouthful of noodles, his entire body stiffened. Thus, he wasn't confident that he could win. He was the almighty expert of the heavenly spring Holy Land. Why had he ever been ignored like that? In his elegant manner, a sorrowful aura diffused. Ziyun was bewildered. Seeing Hades leave, she hurried to follow him. As for Old Ling's order, she didn't care. The heavenly spring Holy Land's Saint Daughter was abducted by a nameless kid. This would become a big event in the Holy Land. The sixth elder pressed down the sorrow in his heart, speaking seriously. Since the great elder wasn't here, he would be the host of this event. Old Ling, it's none of Brother Ha's business. That young man didn't lie to him. Bufong was in the Valley of Gluttony, and this place had spicy strips. Looking at the table in front of them, everyone had a strange expression on their faces as they looked at each other. Wenren Shang said. The audience was also in an uproar, whispering to each other. That person's heaven burial noodles were filled with sorrow. You can't just compete with him and give him a facade that doesn't live up to its name. Anyway, this bowl of noodles was so delicious. In that direction, Hades' era felt a familiar aura. A moment later, he strode toward the Valley of Gluttony, neither too fast nor too slow. That's interesting. Look at your plate. You call it F** King, overwhelming sorrow? Nether King Erha's lips trembled, and his eyes showed a hint of worry. He was afraid that it was his own misconception. The other experts around also smiled, but they weren't smiling. His eyes gradually widened, and then became bloodshot. Whether it's delicious or not, why are you hesitating? We'll know after eating it. Moreover, we haven't tasted it yet. It's too early to judge. When the heavenly spring Holy Land's almighty expert saw Zi Yun quarreling with Hades' era, he almost pulled his beard. All right, it's time for Bu Feng's dish. As soon as the broth entered his mouth, the faint aroma of meat burst out. The clear broth looked bland, but it had an extremely thick, meaty flavor. This kid, Ziyan? Oh, my great-aunt. Why are you here? Old Ling's words weren't polite at all. His voice had the pressure of a superior being. However, Old Ling's face didn't change. He gazed at Hades. Ziyan, stay here. Don't run around. Wait for me, Old Ling said seriously. That familiar aura, is it the delicious, spicy strips? He knew that Bu Feng's noodles weren't as simple as they looked. The days without spicy strips were really lonely. Now that he could taste spicy strips, he was a little excited. He had slaughtered 99 spirit birds with his own hands to cook a dish. This bowl of noodles. This sister wants to cry, said Mu Cheng, wiping her eyes with her slender, white hand. Noodle King Ouyang Chenfeng looked at her, then turned his head to look at the judges. It was a dish that people loved and hated at the same time. In just a short while, the noisy place became deserted. Only Ziyun and Nether King Ha were left. She didn't expect to meet an almighty expert from the Holy Land here. If Old Ling insisted on taking her back, she couldn't struggle. No matter what, Old Ling was an almighty expert. He was much stronger than her father's clone. Who are you? What's your purpose in approaching the heavenly spring Holy Land Saintess? It should be called silly, smiling, funny noodles, right? He needed this dish to tear Wang Tong's power. At this moment, she had already prepared to run away. The sound of something being pulled was clearly heard by everyone. His body was surrounded by thick mental energy. His spirit seemed to be boiling. This is so King sad. At this moment, Old Ling's face was ashen. If Amethyst Elder saw this scene, it would be terrible. Also, who was this kid? His guts were too big. He even dared to flirt with Amethyst Elder's daughter. Amethyst Elder would slap him until he became a retard. The others nodded in agreement. Was this kid ignoring him? The surrounding experts all emitted a powerful aura. Some of them stood on their flying swords, while others emitted a dazzling light, walking in the air. Chapter 742. What the F***? I'm really overwhelmed with sadness. When Wenren Shang took the first bite of the noodles, his face stiffened. He was a little bewildered, and his eyes showed that he couldn't believe it. The taste that made him shiver was spreading from the tip of his tongue. The coldness that penetrated his heart expanded instantly, covering his entire body. At that moment, he felt like a volcano was about to erupt. That feeling made his blood surge furiously. However, what did it have to do with ecstasy? However, why did the noodles taste so good? 1 bite, 2 bites, 3 bites, slurp. Slurp. Wenren Shang simply couldn't stop. His hands didn't stop moving as he kept shoving the noodles into his mouth. The white noodles had a faint aroma of wine, and the special grilled spirit beefsteak made him feel like he was about to eat. The oily juice of the steak seeped into the slender noodles, which made the noodles taste explosively change in just a blink of an eye. His hair seemed to be standing on end. However, it wasn't over yet. Wenren Shang took another bite of the steak. His eyes widened, and in just a blink of an eye, they were filled with veins. Those veins looked ferocious, and at that moment, the scene seemed to shrink and enlarge along with his pupils. A drop of crystal-clear tears appeared in Wenren Shang's eyes, accumulating more and more. Eventually, like a broken dam, they gushed out. Tears rolled down his cheeks, dripping on the noodles in Wenren Shang's hands. It was a spicy taste that could make his taste buds explode. It was an emotion that made Wenren Shang recall many things. He recalled the scene when he cooked for the first time. At that time, he was so naive and romantic. When he swung the kitchen knife, he had the courage to cook the sky, cook the earth, and cook the universe. At that time, he was so stupid. He had to face so many setbacks. Now, Those setbacks were enlarging in his eyes, and they kept appearing in his memory. Huh. While chewing, tears rolled down his cheeks silently. Wenren-Shang's face blushed, and he exhaled a breath of hot air. His nose twitched. King sadness. King ecstasy. He took a bite of the cute poached egg. The perfectly fried poached egg was crystal clear and cute. It was pink and tender and full of elasticity. However, it was only one bite. Wenren-Shang's eyes narrowed. His entire body felt soft, and his pores opened as if they were releasing hot air. This soul-stirring poached egg reminded him of his lost youth and beauty. It was like a loving egg between lovers when they woke up. Oh my God, this feeling is so enjoyable. Wenren-Shang shoved the entire fried egg into his mouth. As he chewed, he realized that a spicy taste had spread in his mouth. This spicy flavor burst out uncontrollably. Wenren-Shang felt the overwhelming sadness while tears streamed down his face. He reached out to wipe his tears. What the hell? Why are my tears not stopping? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. When people saw Wenren-Shang's current posture, they couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air. Am I seeing things? Chef Wenren, is he crying? Is he crying like a little kid? He's crying because he ate the overwhelming sadness noodles? How could this noodles be so terrifying? The diners looked at Wenren-Shang's red face and tears rolling down his face. They were shaken, whispering to each other to express the shock in their hearts. A bowl of noodles had made a chef cry. It was truly overwhelming sadness. It seemed to be more effective than Ouyang Noodle King's Heaven Burial Noodles. The other judges gawked and dropped their jaws. They looked at Wenren-Shang, who had just eaten a few mouthfuls of noodles and then cried like a little kid whose toy was taken away. They were bewildered. They turned around, looking at the steaming bowls of overwhelming sadness noodles in front of them. They gulped their saliva, since it could make Wenren-Shang cry after eating it. Perhaps there was something special about it. Hence, the rest of the judges picked up the overwhelming sorrow noodles, which looked like a street snack, and started to eat it. The first bite was in the mouth. The other judges were bewildered. They exchanged looks and saw the shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. Their taste buds were surrounded by a delicious aroma, and all kinds of flavors came one after another, making their taste buds feel overwhelmed. The oily juice of the steak mixed with the thick aroma of the noodle soup, teasing their nostrils. They couldn't help but take a deep breath. However, as soon as they inhaled, a spicy aroma burst out. Taking a bite of the white noodles, the faint aroma of wine mixed with the aroma of the flour made people feel intoxicated. The sorrow from eating the heaven burial noodles was completely washed away at this moment. Was it a bowl of noodles that could make people happy? Wrong. They were all wrong. They took a bite of the steak and a bite of the poached egg. At this moment, people's eyes became deep and blurry, as if they had recalled many things that made them intoxicated and sink in. The sixth elder's handlebar mustache twitched continuously. His eyes were blurry, and the wrinkles on his face were shaking. His face reddened, and tears rolled in his eyes. He took another bite of the poached egg, and his tears rolled down like a broken dam. While eating this bowl of noodles, the sixth elder recalled his first love. When he had just joined the chef's profession, they had become a couple. That girl's food also had this familiar taste. However, time passed quickly, and the years grew old. Now, they only had sad memories. Ha! With swollen lips, the sixth elder exhaled. Turbid tears rolled down his cheeks. Mu Cheng's face reddened. A bite of noodles, a piece of meat, and an egg. The combination of these three things made her shiver. Her face blushed, and her fair skin seemed to be stained with a layer of pink. It was really mesmerizing. Yeah, Mu Cheng snorted as she breathed. She bit her red lips, and her eyes became misty. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and her eyes became wet. Her long thighs clenched. Countless scenes flashed through his mind. After a long time, he laid his head on the dining table and burst into tears. Why was this noodle so delicious? The judge's performance had completely stunned the audience. They dropped their jaws as if they could stuff a perfectly round egg inside. They didn't know what to say. Looking at the crying judges, they could only stay silent and shocked. Ouyang Qinfeng's face had become ashen. The judge's performance was beyond his estimation. He seemed to have foreseen the result. As a chef who had a restaurant, he could tell the quality of the food from the customers' reactions. Although his heaven burial noodles had amazed the judges, it couldn't change their emotions that much. Was he going to lose? A moment later, the judges also wiped away their tears and finished the overwhelming sorrow noodles. Although their lips were red and swollen and their eyes were blurred, Ouyang Qinfeng's heart sank even more because of the sadness in their hearts. "Now, announce the result," the sixth elder said with a heavy heart. He took a deep breath, and his lips shivered. This noodle was good, but it was too spicy. However, that spiciness made them unable to control themselves. The spiciness was just right, and it made their emotions burst. Thus, they didn't know if they were crying because of the spiciness or because they were moved. As the sixth elder's voice faded, people's eyes fell on Ouyang Qinfeng. They held their breaths, looking forward to the result. Who would be the winner? Boom! Boom! The thick word God stick swept across the void. At this moment, the sky trembled violently, as if it was about to be shattered by the long stick. Xiao Bai's ash-gray eyes twinkled. His palm leaf-sized palm pressed on the war god stick. His energy burst out. The long stick hissed, smashing toward Hu Han. Hu Han was enraged. His hair fluttered as he gripped the god-slaying axe with both hands, fighting bravely. The opponent's god-slaying stick made him not dare to be careless. He raised the axe horizontally, tried to stop the god-slaying stick's attack. The god-slaying stick, which had become so big, pounded on the god-slaying axe. Both weapons glowed. The god-slaying axe's divine power surged unceasingly, its power expanding. However, Hu Han's heart palpitated more and more as he realized that his body was being continuously pushed back by the long rod. The ground was scratched by his feet, and crushed stones were piled up. All of a sudden, the war god stick shrank. Hu Han felt so suffocated. His body staggered. A majestic figure with pressure dashed over. His palm leaf-sized palm slapped instantly. Hu Han roared. He wanted to swing the god-slaying axe, but a long stick that was as red as a soldering iron was pressing down on his axe head. No matter how much strength he used, he couldn't shake off that long stick. The soul ladder emerged above his head, blooming with extreme radiance. Boom! However, Hu Han was dumbstruck shortly after, because just as he was doing his best to resist, a slap suddenly greeted his face. With a bang, Hu Han's entire body was smashed, and he staggered backwards. The expression on his face was a little perplexed. Xiao Bai's strike had succeeded. He wanted to take your life while you were down. He swung his fist again, smashing the dumbfounded Hu Han into the air. The soul ladder above his head also shattered. Xiao Bai loved hand-to-hand combat the most. The long stick pounded, pressing down the god-slaying axe. At the same time, Xiao Bai lifted Hu Han with one hand. With a ripping sound, he violently tore his clothes, sending rags everywhere. Hu Han vomited blood as he was sent flying backward. Finally, he pulled himself together, his eyes filled with shame and anger. "I'm going to risk my life with you." The clothes on his body were torn off, leaving only a pair of underwear. This was the most embarrassing thing. Hu Han's anger surged. His face, which had become red and swollen from Little White's slap, was filled with anger. He shot out and actually fought Little White in close combat. Just like that, a man and a puppet began to fight at close quarters. Every punch hit flesh. Each strike was sonorous. Boom! The man and the puppet's fists hit each other. Hu Han's arm shivered. He felt a heart-tearing pain. He retreated, but Xiao Bai was still approaching him. This unkillable puppet caused Hu Han's heart to tremble. However, Xiao Bai had fought crazily. How could he let Hu Han run away like that? The metal wings on his back shook. Instantly, countless flying knives shot up into the sky and fell. The knives hit the ground, blocking Hu Han's way out. Then, Hu Han couldn't resist at all. He was beaten up. He couldn't beat the puppet, and he couldn't resist. Hu Han felt that it was the most humiliating thing in his life. Even losing to Chu Changsheng wasn't as humiliating as this. This puppet was simply his nightmare, sent by the heavens to torture him. Swoosh! Blood gushed from Hu Han's nostrils. His bones were almost broken. He lay on the ground, coughing blood from time to time. He didn't want to live anymore. Xiao Bai looked ferocious. Although he had many holes, his gray eyes were so cold. He swung the war god's stick, hovering in front of Hu Han's head. His other hand was holding the god-slaying axe that used to belong to Hu Han. Boom! Boom! Outside, a majestic aura suddenly erupted. An expert's figure violently rushed over, causing the void to tremble from the impact. How dare you? You dare to hurt the heavenly spring Holy Land's people. You dare to steal the god-slaying axe of our heavenly spring Holy Land. You deserve to die 10,000 times. Rumble. A deafening roar arose. After Chu Changsheng crushed a golden armor guard's head, his eyes focused, looking at a far distance. His face was solemn. The heavenly spring Holy Land's Almighty has finally appeared. Chapter 743. The almighty experts could tear the void and travel through it. Their cultivation base was really strong. They were the peak existences in the divine soul realm. Of course, the almighty experts were divided into realms. After all, the divine soul with an 8-step soul ladder could be called an almighty. The divine soul with a 9-step soul ladder was also an almighty. Moreover, they were the strongest among the almighty. As for the peak existences among the almighty, they were at the half-step divine soul realm. However, those existences were really rare in the Holy Lands. Chu Changsheng's eyes were bright. His aura was rising unceasingly. He looked at the figure walking in the air. That figure was the almighty expert of the heavenly spring Holy Land, an almighty expert at the divine soul with an 8-step soul ladder. Although he was the lowest almighty, the heavenly spring Holy Land had sent such an existence to the Valley of Gluttony. It showed their determination. This time, they really wanted to take the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. However, how could Chu Changsheng let them take the inheritance that easily? Did they think that sending an almighty expert with an 8-step soul ladder would make the Valley of Gluttony bow down? The heavenly spring Holy Land didn't put the Valley of Gluttony in their eyes. Buzz Oldling's face was cold. He took one step forward, and the void trembled like flowers in the mirror or the moon in the water. He clasped his hands, looking high and mighty. His aura was majestic. It was the pride of an almighty existence. He looked at Hu Han, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. He looked at Hu Han, who was coughing up blood and had a weak aura. His aura became more and more terrifying. Amethyst Elder, you have foresight. This trip to the Valley of Gluttony isn't that simple. Hu Han, that trash, has messed things up one more time. Luckily, I'm here this time. Oldling's eyes sparkled. He clapped his hands. Instantly, outside the city, 3 figures clad in golden armor stormed over. It was actually the existence of the 3 Jinjiaoui protectors. Oldling had summoned these 3 golden armor guards. No matter what, each of them was an existence that was infinitely close to the almighty level. Their existence was enough to flatten the entire Valley of Gluttony. Oldling's shout made Xiao Bai slightly stunned. He held the god-slaying axe in one hand and looked at Old Ling, who was walking in the air from afar. A moment later, Xiao Bai's stomach spun, and a massive black hole emerged. Xiao Bai grabbed the god-slaying axe and shoved it into the black hole. Elder Ling was furious. How dare you, puppet? A thunderous roar exploded. In the air, tens of thousands of energy converged, transforming into a huge energy palm. That palm stretched across the sky, slapping down on Xiao Bai. The weather changed and thunder exploded. Xiao Bai's movements did not stop as he continued to stuff the god-slaying axe in. As soon as it touched the god-slaying axe, the black hole began to twist, and cracks appeared on the axe. When the experts who rushed over saw this scene, their pupils shrank, and they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. What was this puppet trying to do? Swallowed the god-slaying weapon? Many experts' minds shrank. Among them, there were almighty experts, but most of them were experts who controlled the god-slaying weapons of their holy lands. Their goal this time was the same as the heavenly spring holy land, which was to obtain the inheritance. If they could get the inheritance, their holy lands would be more magnificent. However, they didn't care as much as the heavenly spring holy land, which had sent so many experts. 3 golden armored protectors, an expert who wielded a god-slaying weapon, and a powerful being. No, wait a minute. The heavenly spring holy land saintess was kidnapped. Crack, crack, as people shuddered, the god-slaying axe shattered, turning into pieces and entering the black hole in Xiao Bai's stomach. Xiao Bai's eyes twinkled. His aura became extremely terrifying. Dying. Old Ling was so enraged. It swallowed the god-slaying axe. Just who gave this puppet the guts to do this? However, under Old Ling's deadly palm, his face changed. A figure tore through the air, shaking off the bloodstains that belonged to the golden armor guards in his hands. His figure soared into the sky, and the clothes on his body were instantly torn apart, revealing a body of strong muscles. This man was the almighty Chu Changsheng, who had successfully entered the divine soul realm with an 8-step soul ladder. Chu Changsheng roared, his hair standing on end. His white beard and eyebrows fluttered in the wind. He punched the void. Countless beams of energy congregated, creating a massive fist. That fist soared, colliding with the big palm. An earth-shaking explosion occurred. Boom! Rumble! Waves of tyrannical ripples spread out in all directions, raising a cloud of dust that filled the sky. Everything became a little blurry. After one strike, Chu Changsheng's muscular body stood proudly in the void, releasing a terrifying pressure. The energy palm exploded, and Chu Changsheng's fist vanished. The two of them faced each other in the void. Their eyes were as sharp as lightning, and sparks flew everywhere. Chu Changsheng? Chu Changsheng of the Valley of Gluttony? You want to stop me? Old Ling said coldly. However, Chu Changsheng's reply was just a long roar from him. Chu Changsheng's body seemed to radiate light. He was a little excited. Since he had broken through to the almighty realm, it was the first time he had used all of his power to attack. His body crossed the sky, dashing like lightning toward Old Ling, who was standing proudly in the void. Buzz, the 3 protectors clad in golden armor, immediately stood in front of Chu Changsheng. Their scarlet eyes shot out light as the long sabers in their hands slashed horizontally. They wanted to kill Chu Changsheng. 3 golden armor protectors at the divine soul realm with a 7-step soul ladder. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to face them head-on. However, Chu Changsheng dared. Facing the 3 of them, Chu Changsheng didn't retreat. He chose to crush them. The muscles on his arms bulged like dragons. Chu Changsheng shouted, grabbing a long saber, slashing toward him. The long saber slashed in his hand, sending sparks everywhere. The saber energy crisscrossed as if it wanted to chop Chu Changsheng into pieces. Oomph! Chu Changsheng roared, and a saber light emerged. A kitchen knife with 2 handles flew out, hissing and tearing everything apart. Dang! The 2 golden armored protectors were sent flying. He had also subdued one. Clenching his fists, countless wisps of true energy congregated on his fists. Then, he pounded on the protector's head. Boom! The golden armor protector broke. The golden armored protector, who was struggling, let out a furious roar. His helmet cracked, revealing a ferocious beast's face. The beast's face was already covered in blood. Chu Changsheng was that strong. The Heavenly Spring Holy Land's information was wrong. Chu Changsheng had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. His real cultivation base was that of an almighty. The Valley of Gluttony had an almighty existence. In the sky, Old Ling stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes shrank. He had never thought that Chu Changsheng, who had attacked like lightning, was an almighty. to be able to crush the three golden-armored protectors so easily. There was no one else other than a powerful being. Swoosh! Chu Changxing's eyes were cold. His white hair and eyebrows bulged. His muscles bulged as he restrained the protector whose helmet had been smashed. He punched the protector's face again and again. Thudding sounds echoed unceasingly. The protector struggled for a long time. Eventually, he couldn't resist anymore. His head was smashed. He was completely dead. The remaining two protectors let out sorrowful howls. His eyes turned bloodshot. The 13 protectors were like brothers. Even one of them died. It was an extremely sad and indignant matter. This human must die. Old Ling also roared. He was enraged. A black, domineering dagger axe appeared in his hand. That dagger axe was so cold and murderous, emitting a cold aura. When it was swung, the void seemed to be cut and shattered. It wasn't a god-slaying weapon, but its power wasn't weaker than a god-slaying weapon. At this moment, Xiaobai had completely swallowed the god-slaying axe. Light flashed in his mechanical eyes, and his body stiffened. The black hole closed. Xiaobai stood at his spot, not moving an inch. Xiaopi lay on Xiaobai's round head, blinking her big eyes. You've just become an almighty, and you killed a protector of my holy land. Chu Changsheng, you deserve to die. Old Ling took a step forward. The void cracked, and in just a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Chu Changsheng. There was a tearing sound. The two kitchen knives spun and flew over. Chu Changsheng caught them, slashing them horizontally, clashing with the dagger axe. True chi burst forth, and a terrifying energy ripple spread out in a circle. From a distance, the experts from the Holy Lands frowned, watching the battle in the square. Chu Changsheng had the cultivation base of an almighty. This was a big deal. They were lucky that they found it early. If they had found it later, they would have lost a lot of people. Thinking about this, many people took in a breath of cold air, worthy of being the Valley of Gluttony. A centipede would die, but it wouldn't fall down. It did have some foundation. Those experts wore solemn faces. All of a sudden, their faces changed. Their gazes fell on the puppet in the distance. It was a puppet with a god-slaying weapon. Many people were curious. Was it the Valley of Gluttony's trump card? All of a sudden, an expert moved. A sword light tore the sky, slashing toward Xiaobai in just a blink of an eye. It was an expert from the heavens' pivot holy land. That sword light came with thick divine energy, slashing directly at Xiaobai. As that expert had taken action, many experts also attacked Xiaobai. If they wanted to break the Valley of Gluttony, they would cut off Chu Changxing's right-hand man first. Beams of light from the god-slaying weapons bloomed, slashing toward Xiaobai. Chu Changsheng coldly looked at them. Exhaling, he continued to fight with Old Ling. The two of them fought from the ground to the sky. Shrimpy, who had been coiled on White E's head, suddenly turned into a golden color and scuttled out. Its body suddenly enlarged, and it let out a roar as it faced the countless attacks descending from the sky. Xiaobai's silent mechanical eyes moved. His ash-white eyes were wild and brutal. God-slaying weapon detected. Kill. Hades strode forward. Shortly, he entered the Gluttony God City, which was now a pile of ruins. The battle in front of him was grand and imposing. The terrifying air waves brought crushed rocks, which shattered before they could reach his body. Saint Daughter Ziyun, who was following him, was frightened. All of a sudden, Hades' era halted. Ziyun accidentally bumped into him. She was so scared that her face reddened. She took a step backward. Brother Ha, you're so bad, Ziyun said. Hades' era squinted with dark circles under his eyes. He indifferently glanced at her. This young man has a problem. His nose twitched. Then he looked surprised. He reached out his hand and placed it on Ziyun's shoulder. Found it. Follow I. Ziyun was bewildered. A moment later, she didn't have time to refuse. Everything in front of her changed in just a blink of an eye. The void cracked. They were moving through the void. They walked out of the void. A thick aroma assailed their nostrils. Ziyun was dumbfounded. He looked around and saw so many people staring at them. who had just appeared out of nowhere. What happened just now? Where are we? Chapter 744. Bufong let out a long breath. His eyes gradually focused, and his entire aura became dreamy at this moment. The vermilion robe on his body fluttered, and between the alternating red and white, there was a hazy radiance that appeared. His mental force was highly concentrated. After finishing a bowl of overwhelming sadness noodles, his spirit sea was still in a boiling state, and his aura was unceasingly attacking. Cooking this kind of chef's challenge dish required a lot of mental force. It was because he had to do it meticulously, and he couldn't make any mistakes. After all, once he failed, it meant that he would lose his beloved kitchen knife and his qualification to be a chef. To any chef, it would be a huge blow to them. Bufong didn't know which side would win the battle between the overwhelming sadness noodles and the heaven burial noodles. At this moment, he had already started to prepare the next dish. Broken Jade Knife Wong Tong had a kitchen knife that was close to a famous knife. His cooking level was really intimidating, and the aura condensed from his body made Bufong's heart skip a beat. If he couldn't break Wong Tong's aura, Bufong would probably lose. It was the first time Bufong had such a feeling after cooking for so long. Tilting his head, Bufong lifted his head to look at Wong Tong. The aura around him was as stagnant as water, which made people's breaths heavy. At this moment, Wong Tong had finished his dish. The next dish, Crying Moonset Crow. It was vivid and lifelike, just like a beautiful painting. That sparkling and translucent bamboo shoot tower was so beautiful that it was suffocating. That light blue soup, that trembling golden splendor in the soup. It was beautiful and desolate, which matched Wong Tong's aura. It was almost perfect. Wong Tong carried his dish, walking out of the stove. The audience, who were originally immersed in the miraculous counterattack of the overwhelming sadness mask, immediately regained their senses. When they saw this scene, everyone felt their hearts calm down as they quietly looked at the lonely, sorrowful, and frail figure. The light from the projection formation shone on that dish. Everybody saw the crying moonset crow, and they held their breaths. All that was left in his eyes was shock. Ouyang Chinfeng's face was deathly pale. He had been defeated. He had actually been defeated in the field of noodles that he was best at. At this moment, his entire body was trembling, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Ouyang Chunfeng took 2 steps back, then took off his neat chef hat. He took a deep breath, and then let out a long breath, as if he was letting out a breath of depression that had been suppressed in his heart for a long time. Did he still lose in the end? Ouyang Chunfeng looked at Bufong, who was standing on the stove far away, concentrating on cooking the next dish. There were 3 of them in the chef's challenge, but he was the first one to be eliminated. Although Ouyang Chunfeng felt lonely, he did not blame Bufong. Instead, he was looking forward to it. They hoped that Bufong could create a miracle. Although the Valley of Gluttony was the holy land of chefs, the chefs on the tablet of gluttony had been quiet for a long time. They were lifeless, and they had lost the splendor of the Valley of Gluttony's glorious days. Today, Bufong's appearance could be an opportunity to revive them, and it could bring the Valley of Gluttony back to its glorious days. He hoped that Bufong could create a miracle. Ouyang Chinfeng's face revealed an unsightly smile, his eyes looking at Bufong. Suddenly, his eyes focused. He felt a wave of terrifying aura. That aura enveloped him, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. His entire body stiffened, and he felt really uncomfortable. It was Wong Tong. That aura was really terrifying. Of course, Ouyang Chinfeng had heard about Wong Tong. Although he did not know much about Wong Tong, and he did not have much contact with him, he still admired him. Wong Tong seemed to feel Ouyang Chinfeng's gaze. He lifted his head, his eyes deep. After nodding, he continued to walk forward. The dish's aroma was ethereal. Although it tickled the taste buds, it was incomparably fragrant. However, one couldn't help but feel lonely and sorrowful. Just by smelling this aroma, Ouyang Chunfeng knew that his heaven burial noodles weren't as good as this dish. Although they both walked the path of sorrow, the other's sorrow was more thorough than his. Such a powerful opponent. What would Bufang use to defeat the other? Ouyang Chenfeng thought. Wang Tong took a few steps forward. All of a sudden, everybody burst into an uproar. This was because the void in front of them was actually distorted out of nowhere. A ripple spread out, and then two figures emerged from the blurry void. One of them had black hair and black eyes, wearing a warrior's robe. He was so handsome and dashing. The other person was a graceful woman. She exuded a heroic spirit, and her face was extremely beautiful. Especially her head of purple hair, it was even more eye-catching. Everyone's gazes were originally on Wang Tong, who was slowly walking forward. But as the two figures appeared, everyone's gazes turned and landed on them. That man and woman, who had broken the void without fear. Who were they? Wang Tong halted. His eyes were like a pool of stagnant water, looking at Saint Daughter Ziyun and Hades' era. Ziyun was bewildered. She didn't know where they were or why there were so many people around them. Moreover, they were looking at them as if they were looking at some rare spirit beasts. Did they appear in the wrong way? Looking around, she saw many tall buildings with many people's heads on them. In the sky above her head, there was a massive projection formation, which projected her and Era's faces. Ziyun was bewildered. A moment later, she adjusted her makeup. In the projection formation, she also adjusted her makeup. Instantly, she was surprised. Of course, Hades' era wasn't the same. He was a man who had seen the world. Although he was curious about where they were, his nose kept moving. Very quickly, his gaze locked onto a direction. When he looked over, he saw Bufang, who was concentrating on cooking. Oh, it's that young man, Bufang. Finally, I found him. Hades was so excited. His face was filled with joy. He didn't expect that Bufang would be here. He didn't expect that the funny woman he had picked up along the way could recognize the way. It wasn't easy at all. Hades smacked his lips. As soon as he saw Bufang, he couldn't help but think of the spicy strip. At this moment, the delicious, spicy strip had appeared in front of his eyes, emitting an aroma that came from the deep abyss. Oh, he couldn't resist the attack of the spicy strip. Hades' era's eyes were blurry. He strode toward Bufang. Wang Tong held the moonset crow caw, his eyes like stagnant water. Nether King Erha flicked his elegant hair as he strode forward. However, they stood in front of Wang Tong, blocking each other's way. Wang Tong's eyes were like stagnant water as he took a step to the left. Hades had dark circles under his eyes. He also took a step to the left. The two of them blocked each other's way. Wang Tong glanced at Hades, taking a step to the right. Hades seemed to have a telepathic connection with him, taking a step back. This funny scene fell into everybody's sight. At this moment, someone finally burst out. Who's that funny woman? Are they planning to steal Chef Wang Tong's dish halfway? Too much. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? Is he flirting with Chef Wang Tong? Their chatter had made the quiet glutton god's buildings square burst into an earth-shaking uproar. Hades' era was enraged. Anyone who stood in his way of the spicy strip wasn't a good person. He should slap them to death. Young man, you're so naughty. Are you flirting with I? Let me tell you, I'm a man with a dream. The Nether King's body leaned forward, and his almost perfect and handsome face instantly moved forward, almost reaching Wang Tong's face. The two of them seemed to be able to smell each other's breath. Get lost. Wang Tong's face darkened. Naughty. Hades curled his lips. He extended his hand, gently patting Wang Tong's head. Wang Tong was petrified. The momentum that was originally maintained collapsed at this moment, because he could feel an even more terrifying momentum from the man in front of him. Troublemaker. Guards, take this troublemaker away. Yin Yu couldn't stand it anymore. He slapped the table, his face cold and stern. Hades retracted his head. He glanced at Yin Yu and sneered. Then, he walked past Wang Tong, rubbing his hands as he walked toward Bufang. Bufang took out a spicy strip from the system dimensional bag. It was the main ingredient of his dish. If he wanted to break Wang Tong's sorrowful momentum, he would have to rely on this spicy strip. And the moment Hades saw the spicy strip, he was no longer depressed. The dark circles under his eyes disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Little Boo, you know me the best. Hades's black hair fluttered in the wind as he shouted at Buffon. A moment later, his entire body seemed to float. Swinging his hands, he dashed toward Buffon. You're the wind, and I'm the sand. Crazy to the ends of the earth. However, Buffon didn't notice Hades at all. The dragonbone kitchen knife in his hand spun, slashing down. The knife light flashed, and the spicy strip was cut into small pieces. The knife spun, lifting the spicy strip into the wok. The steam swirled, sweeping away the remaining smell of the spicy strip in the air. Hades's dashing body froze. A moment later, he screamed sorrowfully, "I spicy strip." Chapter 745. Roar. An ear-piercing roar reverberated. Xiao Opi's body suddenly enlarged, and the golden shell on his body sparkled under the sunlight. His body enlarged, and his eyes became more ferocious with the special ruthlessness of spirit beasts. Numerous energy beams and attacks rained down from the sky. It seemed as if they wanted to destroy everything in their path. That fluctuation was extremely violent, and even the void showed faint signs of cracking. Xiaobai's eyes moved for a while. Facing so many terrifying attacks from the sky, he didn't move at all. He didn't even want to dodge. He just stood at his spot, bewildered. The god-slaying sword energy slashed grumblingly. Terrifying saber energy diffused and boomed. Arrow light, flying knives, and spears. At this moment, all kinds of attacks were aimed at Xiaobai. This group of people wanted to kill Xiaobai completely. In their eyes, Xiaobai was Chu Changsheng's right-hand man. Such a powerful puppet was infinitely close to the almighty level. If they could kill him, it would be a big blow to Chu Changsheng. Chu Changsheng felt it was a little tricky. If Xiaobai was killed like that, it wouldn't benefit him at all. He and Old Ling, the almighty of the heavenly spring holy land, were fighting from the ground to the sky. Their true energy was like a dragon, and each flow of true energy was surging and surging. The rumbling caused the void to tremble. It was a battle between almighty experts. Even heaven and earth would change because of it. The light in Xiaobai's eyes twinkled more fiercely. After swallowing a god-slaying weapon, Xiaobai's fighting competence had increased a little. However, this process needed time. Buzz, light flashed. A moment later, a jet of gold light fled. Xiaobai stood on Xiao Opi's back, and the two of them dodged the attack. Boom, boom, boom. So many attacks hit the place where Xiaobai and Xiao Opi were standing. At this moment, the entire ground caved in. Rubble flew everywhere, and the ground collapsed. Up in the sky, Chu Changsheng held a unique kitchen knife in his hand, slashing unceasingly at Old Ling. His aura was like a rainbow. At this moment, he was actually suppressing his opponent. His physical body was strong, and his physical strength was invincible. Even though he had just become an almighty, he could still suppress a veteran almighty. The entire Glutton God City seemed to shake at this moment. Everyone in the Taodai Square finally sensed it, and they were a little dumbfounded. What happened? How could there be such a violent tremor? The entire Gluttony Square seemed to shake. Many people felt a terrifying pressure pressing down on their hearts. They, who were originally tempted by the delicacies, were completely shocked at this moment. Many people rushed out of their respective positions, intending to investigate the situation outside. However, as soon as they came out, they saw a scene that terrified them. Countless attacks rumbled in the sky, chasing after a golden light. Above the golden light, an iron puppet stood proudly. Rumble, rumble. The void exploded unceasingly. Many experts with intimidating auras were chasing after that iron puppet. Their attacks scattered everywhere, shattering the surroundings unceasingly. What was going on? Enemy attack. Everybody took in a breath of cold air. They felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave. A strong enemy was attacking the Valley of Gluttony. Some people with sharp eyes saw more terrifying energy fluctuations in the sky. It seemed to be the collision between almighty experts. The void twisted unceasingly. The kind of battle made people take in deep breaths. The glutton god city looked like it was full of holes and holes. Countless corpses lay everywhere. Fresh blood spread out and covered the entire city. Everyone fell silent as an indescribable sorrow surged in their hearts. Xiaobai and Xiaopi were chased by so many experts. Those experts wanted to kill Xiaobai. However, Xiaopi was too fast. He was like a jet of gold light that crossed the sky unceasingly. In just a blink of an eye, he disappeared. This caused the attacks of those experts to basically miss the target. The Heavens Pivot Holy Land's experts were enraged. They wielded their god-slaying weapons, chasing after him. The divine symbols on the god-slaying weapons radiated light. This kind of energy fluctuation was really terrifying. Rumble, rumble. The battle between the almighty experts in the sky seemed to reach its climax. Old Ling rolled his eyes, holding the god-slaying weapon in one hand. His eyes were filled with brutality. He couldn't kill Chu Changsheng. Chu Changsheng was even suppressing him. It was unforgivable. He was an almighty expert of the heavenly spring holy land. A long roar echoed. Old Ling's aura changed dramatically. A light that shot out from his glabella. A milky white soul ladder condensed above his head. Each step of the soul ladder looked real. 8 steps of the soul ladder. At the top of the soul ladder, a dazzling star bloomed and shone. After getting the heavenly spring star's light, Old Ling's power had become stronger. His spear swept horizontally, and instantly the sky was filled with spear light. It almost swallowed Chu Changsheng's entire body, wanting to pierce him with thousands of holes. It was like a peacock spreading its tail. Its murderous aura was beautiful. Chu Changsheng's eyes focused. He roared, and the energy in his body burst out one more time. A black mark emerged on his forehead, covering his entire body in just a blink of an eye. His fighting capacity rocketed. The kitchen knife slashed, spinning fast. It seemed to turn into a tornado that could sweep the entire world. It collided with thousands of spear lights. Boom, boom, boom. Old Ling retreated several steps in the sky, his face grimaced. He had planned to use his power to suppress the other. However, he found that his power wasn't as strong as the others. This made him feel a little embarrassed. The kitchen knife spun, shining dazzlingly. Chu Changsheng held the knife, his body emitting steam. The black marks covered his entire body, which made him look so ferocious. Come, don't you want to destroy my valley of gluttony? If you have the guts, then step over my dead body. Chu Changsheng's eyes were strange and evil. His white hair had turned black, and he looked much younger. His vitality was boundless. Old Ling's face was cold, and he was so angry. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out from the ground. The arrow buzzed, as if it had transformed into a beam of light that shot forward in an instant. At that moment, Chu Changsheng felt an extreme danger. He stomped his foot, and the void shook as if he wanted to shatter the arrow. However, the arrow was still as steady as Mount Tai, bringing with it a terrifying power. That arrow must be shot by an almighty expert. Chu Changsheng made up his mind. His body flashed, and in just a blink of an eye, he had moved a distance away. Swoosh! Blood splashed in the sky. Chu Changsheng's eyes shrank. He couldn't believe it. He looked at the bloody hole on his shoulder where the arrow had pierced through him. Blood was gushing from a wound. How could he not dodge it? He had dodged it. Chu Changsheng felt a chill in his heart. His eyes shot out like lightning, looking at the one who had shot the arrow. It was a man wearing a conical bamboo hat, and his entire body was wrapped in a black robe. The beautiful bow in his hand was so mesmerizing. Old Ling also saw that man, exhaling in relief. Wavering light holy land, exterminating sun bow, Chun Song. The wavering light holy land was one of the 7 great sage lands of the hidden dragon royal court. Moreover, The one in front of him was an almighty from the wavering light Holy Land. He was the second almighty expert who had flattened the valley of gluttony. The wavering light Holy Land had 3 bows: exterminating sun, setting sun, and shooting sun. The owners of the bows were almighty, and they were 3 brothers. Each of them was really strong. The owner of the shooting sun bow was a famous god archer in the Hidden Dragon continent. Rumors said that he could shoot down the stars in the sky. Of course, this might very well be an exaggeration. However, this also showed how powerful these 3 brothers were. As the wavering light Holy Land had sent such experts here, it seemed like they wanted to get the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. The bamboo hat was lifted, revealing a gentle face. Chun Tsang, the wavering light Holy Land's expert, had a warm face that gave people a feeling of a spring breeze. He nodded to Chu Changsheng and Old Ling. A moment later, he pulled the bow and shot the arrow one more time. Swoosh! In that instant, the radiance seemed to tear the world. Boom! Chu Changsheng's shoulder exploded one more time. Blood splashed in the sky. Chu Changsheng's mouth was bleeding. He took several steps backward, his face extremely stern. 2 almighty experts besieged him. It seemed like he wouldn't have a good ending this time. Down below, Xiaopi took Xiaobai, fleeing everywhere to avoid the attacks of those experts. At this moment, Xiaobai was still brewing the god-slaying weapon he had just swallowed. The ash-gray light in his eyes twinkled unceasingly, as if he was still evolving and leveling up. Buzz, all of a sudden, Shrimpy, who had been running away all this time, suddenly stopped. It slowly turned around. The people chasing after him were bewildered, looking at Mantis Shrimp and the puppet in astonishment. A moment later, Mantis Shrimp turned around. The black hole in the belly of Xiao Bai's puppet emerged, spinning unceasingly. A red-hot iron stick slowly emerged from it. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Xiao Bai's fan-like big hand grabbed the war god stick. After the war god stick had evolved, the divine marks on it became more complicated. When Whitey completely took out the war god stick, Whitey's eyes widened. The light in his mechanical eyes stabilized. Standing on Mantis Shrimp's back, Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes were cold and indifferent. God-slaying weapon detected. Kill. Buzz then, under the astonished gazes of all the experts, Xiao Bai rode Mantis Shrimp, launching a counterattack. The war god stick swept horizontally, and one end of the stick rose rapidly. Hades' face was filled with pain. He bit his lower lip, running to Bufong's stove with tears in his eyes. How would he treat the spicy strip like that? This kind of delicacy needed to be savored carefully. This barbaric treatment was disrespectful to the delicacy. Bufong was startled by Hades, who had run to his stove. What was going on? Wasn't that little Ha, whom he hadn't seen for a long time? Why was he here? Bufong stopped what he was doing, looking at Hades' Era indifferently. Era's tearful eyes met Bufong's. After a few seconds, Era retreated in defeat, looking away. Old Boo, you're really shameless. Treating the spicy strip like that isn't right. Hades' Era said seriously. Bufong looked at him, his brows arching. Then what do you think is right? Bufong asked. Give me a spicy strip, and I'll show you. Era's eyes brightened as he said. The corners of Bufong's mouth twitched. A moment later, he took out a spicy strip from the system dimensional bag. Era couldn't wait, reaching out his hand. However, he saw a flash of knife light. The chili strips were chopped into fine powder. The dragon bone kitchen knife patted, and the spicy strips fell into the black turtle constellation walk, swallowed by the boiling water. You want a spicy strip? Wait until I'm done with this chef's challenge. Now, please stay away from the stove. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe, Bufong said, his face emotionless. Hades looked at the boiling black turtle constellation walk, which emitted the enchanting aroma of the spicy strip. His eyes narrowed, and his mind flickered. Then, he strode forward with big steps. It was as though he had shrunk the ground to an inch, appearing in the middle of the judge's table. Yin Yu felt a chill run down his spine. A moment later, he realized that an arm was placed on his shoulder. I heard that you want to chase me away? Hades' Era's dark circles reappeared as he said faintly. Yin Yu's body stiffened. He was enraged as he turned around, looking at Hades with eyes as sharp as lightning. Chase me away. Who do you think you are? Hades said nonchalantly. He raised his hand, flicking a finger at Yin Yu's glabella. Instantly, with a loud bang, Yin Yu felt an irresistible force explode. His entire body was blown away, smashing into the wall of the Gluttony Square. Crushed stones rolled down. The audience that had yet to leave the Gluttony Square gawked and dropped their jaws. The judges have changed. Let's continue. Hades clapped his hands, sitting down majestically. Then, he turned to the beautiful Mu Chung and asked, "The judges can eat little Boo's dishes, right?" Mu Chung was bewildered. Instinctively, she nodded. He could send Yin Yu flying with just a finger. What kind of power did he have? Also, did this fellow know how to evaluate dishes? Chapter 746. That kid wanted to be a judge? Everyone was stunned. They didn't know why this guy, who had suddenly appeared and sent Yin Yu flying with one finger, was going to replace Yin Yu as the referee. What was that guy doing? With one look, they knew that he didn't know how to judge a dish. Compared to Yin Yu, this guy being a judge was an insult to the judges. Boom! Yin Yu dashed out from the rubble. His face was ferocious, and his eyes were red. His forehead was swollen, and he was panting heavily. However, he didn't dare to move. To be able to send him flying with one finger, it was enough to prove that the handsome man in front of him had extraordinary strength. Perhaps only an existence like the Great Elder could deal with him. However, he wasn't willing to give up his position as a judge. Who was he? He was Yin Yu, a special grade chef. In the entire Valley of Gluttony, he was one of the best chefs. How could he bear such humiliation? Yin Yu, of course, was unwilling. However, looking at Hades' Era, who was lying on his seat, he didn't dare to say anything. He didn't dare to ask someone to chase that guy away. He was really scared. Thus, he turned around and looked at Wenren Shang. Wenren Shang wasn't a judge. He just occupied the Great Elder's position. Now that there was another overbearing person, it was time for Wenren Shang to get lost. Hence, Yin Yu strode toward Wenren Shang. Wenren Shang, give up your position. Let me be the judge. This kind of commanding tone, this kind of arrogant tone, made Wenren Shang squint his eyes. He took out a bamboo tube, poured out the wine, and slowly drank it. Xiao Chun glanced at Yin Yu, who was walking like a shooting star, and remained indifferent. His entire person was incomparably lazy as he snorted and ignored Yin Yu. Yin Yu was instantly enraged. He thought that with his status, Wenren Shang would obediently accept, but Wenren Shang's attitude really made him angry. Wenren Shang, don't burn yourself. Offending me won't end well, said Yin Yu coldly. Carefully drinking the wine, Wenren Shang put down the tube, his mouth curving into a disdainful smile. Get lost. Don't think that being the first chef of the Tablet of Gluttony is something great. I won't buy it. Someone else took your position, and you want to mess with me. Are you sick? Wenren Shang rolled his eyes. Yin Yu's face darkened. He gave Wenren Shang a deep look. Eventually, he turned around and left. As he was the first chef of the Tablet of Gluttony, he didn't say anything. This kind of silent departure was even more chilling than the kind of departure that was clamorous and cursing. Wenren Shang's back, Wenren Shang's face. Wenren Shang looked at Yin Shang's figure. Bu Fong. That is to say he did it, and it you shun, and you and look to go. That bamboo shoot was tender and tender. It sparkled brilliantly, as if it had been soaked in the soup, which made it even more beautiful. From that bamboo shoot, Shi Yin could feel waves of majestic vitality. The vitality flooded over, making the bamboo shoot's fragrance reach its peak. At the same time, it also had the thick aroma of the spicy strip. Bu Fong took a deep breath, and a solemn expression appeared on his face. He took out several chili strips from the system's dimensional storage and minced them. After fiddling with the minced chili strips for a while, the dragon bone kitchen knife in Bu Fong's hand began to spin. The knife slashed, cutting the bamboo shoot. He put the spicy strips inside, then closed the bamboo shoot. However, he found that the bamboo shoot was flawless, without a single crack. Because his knife was so fast, the bamboo shoot didn't seem to be cut at all. It was the performance of Bu Fong's meteor knife skill. Bu Fong picked up a piece of spirit beast meat and diced it. He also chopped up many of the supplementary ingredients that he had prepared beforehand. The preparations were done. Bu Fong scooped out half a ladle of the abyssal chili sauce, which was stored in a crystal jar. Not much, just half a ladle. Then, the black turtle constellation wok was heated up. The heaven and earth obsidian flame entered the wok. Oil was added, and the temperature rose. Bu Fong poured in the ingredients. In an instant, sizzling sounds resounded, and thick smoke and fragrance rose. Boom, boom, boom. While stir-frying, sparks appeared. Bu Fong's expression was calm, but the movements of his hands were extremely skillful. He continuously shook the wok, causing the ingredients inside to churn. When he poured the ladle of abyssal chili sauce into the wok, the sparks became fiercer. It was like a wild lion, opening its mouth and letting out a deafening roar. And it wasn't over yet. He picked up the translucent jade bamboo shoot and cut it horizontally with his kitchen knife. Immediately, the jade bamboo shoot was cut into pieces. He wasn't planning to cook an exquisite dish like wonton. Instead, he was planning to cook a dish to break wonton's momentum. If he wanted to break the power, he had to use the spear to attack the shield. Wonton's power was a condensed sorrow, and Bu Fong wanted to use the endless growth of the bamboo shoot to break it. The bamboo shoot originally had such a meaning. So, with Bu Fong's meticulous cooking, it was a good opportunity. Piece by piece, the jade bamboo shoots fell into the blazing wok, swallowed by the flames, and then swept away. The center of the bamboo shoots was mixed with the chili strip, and it looked like the two were one. It was a novelty. Finally, after stir-frying it, a layer of soup was poured over it. Sizzling sounds of steam arose. In the next moment, a mellow and rich fragrance flowed out. Inside the wok, within the dense steam, the dish was trembling. He was really lonely without the spicy strips. That was why he needed the spicy strips. He couldn't wait for even a second. All right, since everyone wants to eat this dish first, then this king will reluctantly give it a try. Hades' era wrinkled his nose, saying, then he turned his chopsticks, which were reaching toward the moonset crow, toward the moonset crow. The moonset crow's sparkling bamboo shoot tower was actually made of densely packed bamboo shoots. It was sparkling, translucent, and very beautiful. Hades picked up a few, dipped them in the light blue gravy, and put them into his mouth. As soon as the dish entered his mouth, the exquisite taste of the bamboo shoots burst out instantly. It was like dark clouds covering the originally clear sky, which made his cheerful heart feel very heavy. He seemed to feel the chef's sorrow. If it were an ordinary person, after eating this dish, they would fall into the atmosphere created by the dish, unable to extricate themselves. What's this thing? Compared to the spicy strips, it's just trash. Hades ate a mouthful of the spicy strips. Then, he slammed his chopsticks on the table, snorting discontentedly. He was really dissatisfied. Compared to the other judges, who were intoxicated with sorrow, he was simply an anomaly. What's the meaning of the concept in this dish? That kind of sorrowful aura actually merged into a dish. Young man, why don't you ascend to the heavens? The purpose of a dish's existence is to satisfy the diners and make them happy. Era wasn't afraid to touch this kind of dish that was filled with sorrow. The others also exchanged looks. They were a little speechless. Wonton's dish could be said to be almost perfect. Then it was Bu Fong's myriad things grow. The projection array reflected the piping hot dish. The scene was extremely exquisite, and it was shrouded in smoke. It was vivid and lifelike, causing many people to exclaim in admiration. Hades's mouth watered. Spicy strips. He could smell the thick aroma of the spicy strips. In front of the spicy strips, everything else was trash. All of a sudden, just as people were about to taste the dish, the ground shook. Everybody's mind was shaken. A moment later, a fierce explosion occurred on one side of the Gluttony Gods building. Smoke and dust rolled, and debris scattered everywhere. Along with a desperate roar, a figure was shot backward, landing in the middle of the two stoves in the Gluttony Gods building square. Everybody was bewildered at the sudden change. A moment later, they turned to see the big hole in the Gluttony Gods building. Two figures emerged there. One was holding a halberd, while the other was holding a longbow. Their auras shot out, rolling up thousands of storms. Their overbearing, murderous auras aimed at Chu Changsheng, who was lying on the ground. Chapter 747. Blood filled the sky, and a thick smell of blood diffused. Chu Changsheng struggled to get up from the ground. His entire body was covered in bloody holes. Some of them had even pierced through his body, revealing his ferocious white bones. However, he was still an almighty expert. Even if his body was broken and full of holes, his eyes were still cold and sharp. He stood up, his eyes like lightning, looking at the two people hovering in the sky. The heavenly spring Holy Land and the wavering light Holy Land had attacked the Valley of Gluttony at the same time. They had both sent almighty experts. It seemed like God wanted to destroy the Valley of Gluttony. Chu Changsheng felt a little tired. The Valley of Gluttony had gradually declined, and now they were being humiliated. It should be known that when the Valley of Gluttony was at its peak, no Holy Land dared to treat it like that. At that time, the Valley of Gluttony had enough experts to subdue half of the Hidden Dragon Royal Court. Any Holy Land would have to bow down to them. The Valley Master of the Valley of Gluttony was dignified even in front of the saint sovereigns of the Great Sage Lands. Chu Changsheng's body was bleak and broken. Blood splashed everywhere. He looked around with a desperate face. The Valley of Gluttony today was no longer as glorious as it was in its heyday. Even the last hope of the inheritance was about to be taken away. Sorrow, despair, all of them flooded Chu Changsheng's heart. Tui. Chu Changsheng spat out a mouthful of blood, his face ashen. At this moment, the Gluttony Square quieted down. Everybody was dumbstruck. This sudden change was beyond everyone's expectation. That man with so many bloody holes. Was he the Great Elder? How could he be the Great Elder? He was the pillar of the Valley of Gluttony. Many people's faces were filled with fear. How could something like this happen? The Great Elder was actually beaten up to such a state, and his body was covered in blood. Bufong furrowed his brows, looking at the Great Elder. Then he lifted his head to look at the two people holding a halberd and a longbow on their back. Their auras were so fierce that they suppressed the entire place. Chu Changsheng, you don't have a chance anymore. The Valley of Gluttony has declined. Why do you still want to protect something you can't protect? Old Ling said coldly as he waved his halberd, creating a terrifying shockwave. His voice swept across the entire place, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Look, you're fighting a bloody battle to the death outside, but what are you doing here? He's actually cooking? Why do you need to protect this Valley of Gluttony? Even if I give you the inheritance, you will still be defeated. Old Ling said, Shut up. Chu Changsheng's body staggered. His white hair and beard were dyed with blood, turning scarlet. He opened his mouth and roared angrily, his hair and beard standing on end. Old Ling's expression instantly changed. Then it became eerie. You're courting death. Why do you think I'm keeping you alive? It was for that inheritance. If it wasn't for that inheritance, you would have been dead by now. The man in the bamboo hat from the Yaoguang Holy Land looked indifferent. He placed his hand on the longbow, raised it, and pulled it back. A buzzing sound rang out, and in the next moment, a sonic boom erupted in the void. That bow hadn't shot an arrow, but it had already shaken the void. It was worthy of being the treasure bow of the Yaoguang Holy Land. Stop talking nonsense. Shoot him half dead. Hang him up and beat him slowly. Then you can tell me everything, said exterminating son Bao Chan Song indifferently, his voice ruthless. A moment later, light gathered in his hand, forming an arrow. Swish! His hand loosened, and the sound of the bowstring being pulled toward the air. Boom! Rumble! It was like thunder exploding in people's ears. Everybody was bewildered. They felt that the light in front of them wanted to tear everything, which made them shiver. Chu Changxing's eyes shrank. It was all because of this exterminating sun bow. If it weren't for this bow, he wouldn't have been pushed to this point. Damn it! Chu Changsheng gritted his teeth. True energy surged in his body, but he felt so helpless. Blood flowed out of the bloody hole, causing his strength to slightly collapse. That majestic and terrifying arrow, he had no way of blocking it. Was he going to die? He was unwilling. The Valley of Gluttony was going to be destroyed in his hands. Everybody held their breaths. At this moment, their faces grimaced. Deep in their eyes, despair arose. In the next moment, the pillar of the Valley of Gluttony, the great elder Chu Changsheng, was going to be mercilessly shot to death. All of a sudden, the terrifying arrow stopped. It didn't explode. Some people had closed their eyes in despair, as they didn't want to see Chu Changxing's blood splashing. However, they found that the scene they had imagined didn't happen. Chu Changxing's hair and beard fluttered. He rolled his eyes, looking at the figure in front of him. Nether King Erha's dark eyes widened, and his eyes were filled with rage. He stretched out his hand, spreading his fingers to grab the light arrow, causing the terrifying light arrow to be unable to advance even an inch. Do you know how long I've waited for my spicy strips? Do you know how much hardship I had to go across the sea just to get my spicy strips? Do you know how angry I am when I'm about to eat my spicy strips? Hades' era was enraged. His chopsticks had almost reached the spicy strip in his myriad things grow. However, this group of people had completely disrupted the judge's rhythm. He could only watch helplessly as Bufong picked up the myriad living being again. That feeling of wanting something but not being able to get it would make a pig climb a tree. After each sentence Hades said, the power in his hand increased. A moment later, the light arrow was crushed, turning into tens of thousands of wisps of energy, scattering. Hades' era's hair fluttered in the wind. His handsome face was so dazzling under the light. Everybody was dumbstruck, or rather, dumbstruck. No one had thought that that unknown man would suddenly take action and save the great elder. Was the man who had chased away Yin their savior? Some people suddenly had hope in their hearts. Saint Daughter Ziyun's face was intoxicated. Looking at Nether King Erha's handsome face and the cool moves he made, her face blushed. Brother Ha, you're awesome. Hades exhaled, rolling his eyes. His warrior robe puffed up as he flipped his hair. All of you remember this. Wait until this king finishes tasting this dish. Otherwise, I will crush everything you have just like how I crushed that thing just now. The Nether King grinned. Presumptuous. Old Ling's face was cold as he shouted. He took in a breath of cold air. He had never thought that the one who had taken action was this man, the kid who had kidnapped Saint Daughter Ziyin. How could this kid still have the face to show up here? Moreover, he could stop exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's arrow. It was the wavering light Holy Lands exterminating Sun Bao. When the arrow was shot, its power was so immense that even the almighty experts would feel threatened. Old man, say that again. The Nether King raised his head and glared at Old Ling with dark circles under his eyes. Old Ling's face froze. He wanted to say something, but it got stuck in his throat. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's eyes were cold and indifferent. You can stop my exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's attack. You should be proud. However, anyone who stops me will die. Today, no one can save this old man. The Valley of Gluttony will be destroyed. Arrogant. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and their eyes were filled with boundless anger. Why did this man want to kill their Valley of Gluttony? Sizzle, sizzle. Light sparkled one more time. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song raised the longbow in his hand one more time, releasing a terrifying pressure. An 8-step soul ladder emerged above his head. At the top of the soul ladder, an alcade star shone, projecting beams of light. Boom! Rumble. The void seemed to distort. The arrow of light seemed to have materialized, and the densely packed patterns on it circulated and covered it. The sound of thunder, the roar of beasts, and the explosion of the earth were all deafening. Alcade curse arrow. Exterminating sun, bow, Chun Song roared. His fingers on the bow loosened. The sound of a bowstring snapping resounded. Instantly, a long arrow shot out, distorting the space around it. That arrow was so dazzling. Countless beams of light shot out, creating a massive sky-high vortex. Hades' Era lifted his head, squinting to look at the arrow in the void. He gently spat. Youngsters these days. So naughty. Hades said. A moment later, black nether energy shot out from his body, filling the sky. The nether aura swept out and formed an illusory figure behind Erha. That illusory figure was indomitable, covering everything. For a split second, everything seemed to darken. That phantom was so high up in the sky. It was so dark that people couldn't see its appearance. It only had one eye, which looked like a demon king awakening from the abyss. It was like a terrifying existence that could control everything had revived. With just one glance from Hades, the sky and the earth could shatter. Everyone felt as if their hearts had frozen. The light arrow shattered in just a blink of an eye. Their minds were submerged. Ziyan covered her mouth, her face disbelieving. Bufang's eyes twitched. He was so surprised the others were dumbstruck. Chu Changsheng, who was standing behind Hades, felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. At first glance at that phantom, he felt dazzled. He was frightened. What kind of existence was that? This phantom came and went quickly. Everyone felt as if the phantom had never appeared and had already disappeared. However, the light arrow had vanished. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song was shivering. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, as if there was an oppressive lightning dragon surging within it. However, as the phantom disappeared, the thunder dragon also disappeared. Boom! While everybody was still in shock, the gluttony god's building exploded one more time. A war god stick that looked like a burning iron swung from the outside, pounding on Oldling and exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song were caught off guard. Due to the shock of the Nether King's might, the two of them were sent flying in a moment of carelessness. However, this also allowed everyone to recover from their previous shock. They lifted their heads to look. The figure that had released the terrifying phantom had returned to the judge's table. He rubbed his hands, looking at the dish in Bufang's hand. Outside the gluttony god's building, rocks rolled. A streak of golden light rushed over in an instant. The other end of the rolling metal was caught by a giant, ferocious figure. Xiaobai was holding several god-slaying weapons in his hands. He stepped on Xiaopi's back, slowly emerging. Chapter 748. What happened in the Chef's Challenge was beyond people's imagination. Even Bufang was a little bewildered. He held the fragrant myriad living things in his hand, looking at the figures who had smashed the gluttony god's building. Of course, there was also Xiao Bai, who was holding the Iron War god stick and stepping on a gold shrimpy. He frowned. Those people had disrupted the order of the Chef's Challenge, which made it hard for the Chef's Challenge to continue. Bufang felt a little irritated. He hadn't expected that the clown, Hades' Era, would also come. Wasn't he taken away the last time? Did he escape again? He glanced at Erha and found that the previously awe-inspiring Erha had already scurried over to the judge's table and was looking at him eagerly, his mouth open and mouth drooling as he stared at the all things grow in his hand. He glanced at the two experts whom Xiao Bai had smashed down from the sky. Then he exhaled gently. He placed the myriad living things on the table. Taste it. Give me the result. Let's continue the Chef's Challenge. Bufang said with an emotionless face. His voice was calm. The sixth elder's handlebar mustache rose. He had almost pulled it off himself. How could this fellow be so calm? Don't you see what the Valley of Gluttony is facing? Look at the great elder. He's about to fall. We don't have the mood to taste your dish. the sixth elder said with a sorrowful face. Mu Chung and the others also looked worried. The Valley of Gluttony belonged to them. After all, once it fell, they would suffer a calamity too. Bufang looked at them indifferently. He was still so calm. I need the result of the chef's challenge. Wang Tong's half-white, half-black hair fluttered. Even though something like that had happened, he was still calm, his face unchanged. He just curiously looked at Bufang's myriad living things. This dish had made him shiver, and his eyes focused. That rich life, energy, that endless fluctuation of energy. This dish has some tricks up its sleeves. Just by sensing the vitality in the dish, his skin was covered with goosebumps. Spring bamboo shoots were full of vitality, so it was normal for it to make dishes that were full of vitality. However, this life force was simply too dense. The judges' attitudes were tough. Now that these strong enemies had invaded the Valley of Gluttony, it was something they could not tolerate. They had to get up and defend, even if there was nothing they could do. In the distance, Chu Changsheng was shaking. His body had so many bloody holes, which made people shiver in fear. He coughed up blood, and his body was covered in blood. However, his eyes were still as resolute as ever. He seemed to feel hope. He staggered a few steps back, and his gaze landed on the pretty Xiaoya in the distance. Xiaoya stood at the side, hugging a large pillar. Her big eyes were filled with spirituality. Owner Boo, no matter what happens in the chef's challenge, can you take Xiaoya with me? The Valley of Gluttony doesn't have much time left. Xiaoya is really important to me and the entire Valley of Gluttony. Chu Changsheng weakly turned his head to look at Bufang. His face and white beard were stained with blood. As arrogant as he was, his pale, paper-like face looked like he was begging. The great elder of the Valley of Gluttony, an extremely arrogant man, was begging. Bufang was bewildered. The corners of his mouth twitched. He put down the dish in his hand, gently sighing. He took off the velvet rope that tied his hair. After the velvet rope was taken off, his hair scattered. You can take Xiaoya, but I hope you won't do anything to hurt her. Anyway, the chef's challenge still needs to continue. Let them decide the final result. Bufang said casually. Chu Changxing's eyes, which were filled with despair, were now filled with endless vitality. Bufang agreed. Cough, cough, cough. Coughing blood, Chu Changsheng was so excited that he twisted his body. His body, which was full of bloody holes, couldn't bear it anymore. Blood gushed out. Good, good. Thank you, Owner Boo. Our Valley of Gluttony will remember this favor. Chu Changsheng roared. Since you're the judges, the chef's challenge hasn't ended yet. You can't give up. Taste the dishes and give the final result to this chef's challenge. Chu Changsheng said, looking at the sixth elder and the others. The sixth elder and the others shivered inwardly, their faces solemn. They nodded and looked at Bufang with complicated eyes. This little chef could actually make the arrogant great elder lower his head and show a pleading look. Indeed, he wasn't ordinary. Hurry up. Don't babble. Let's eat. Hades' era couldn't wait anymore. He grinned, his chopsticks shaking. Mu Chung and the others were speechless. Ziyan rubbed his forehead. Compared to the domineering expert who could break light arrows with just a glance, this fellow was like the difference between heaven and earth. Boom, boom, rumble. Inside the ruins, two figures stood up and scathed. The heavenly spring holy land's almighty old Ling held a halberd, his face so dark that it could drip water. Exterminating Sun Bao, Chun Song panted, his eyes so cold. Qi activity circulated around their bodies, causing crushed rocks to tumble down one after another. The two of them raised their heads, and their gazes landed on Whitey, who was holding the god-slaying rod and stepping on Shrimpy. This iron puppet, which they had never paid any attention to, had actually taken advantage of their unpreparedness to give them a sneak attack. It had struck them down from the sky. Their faces were utterly shameful, unforgivable. Xiao Bai's ash-gray mechanical eyes twinkled. His body looked ferocious, sharp. He held several god-slaying weapons in his hands, which belonged to the enemies who had chased after him. And now, Those weapons were in his hands. Outside the gluttony god's building, the ground was full of ruins. There was a hazy mist in the ruins, and there were even broken pieces of cloth slowly falling from the sky. The ground was filled with screams and groans. Some people staggered to get up from the ground. They were naked, their faces pale, and they were coughing blood. Their clothes were ripped off, and they were almost smashed to death by a stick. Their god-slaying weapons were snatched. This was King Dogsh T. They didn't know what kind of perverted puppet they had encountered. Not only did it take people's weapons, but it also tore their clothes. If it didn't have life-saving techniques, they would have been smashed to death by that god-slaying weapon that was as hot as iron. Their faces were filled with resentment. They took clothes from their spatial spirit tools, putting them on. Then, they fled to the gluttony god's building. The battle inside had just begun. They wanted to see that iron puppet be punished with their own eyes. Holding the war god stick in one hand, one end of the stick had become so big. After the stick had smashed the two of them away, the war god stick shrunk to its normal size. With a clanging sound, Xiaobai spun the war god stick around, stabbing it into his back. Two sharp thorns clamped down on the war god stick. Then, he took the god-slaying weapon from his other hand. Xiaobai's eyes twinkled. There were 3 god-slaying weapons in this place. After swallowing them, Xiaobai could level up one more time. Although these god-slaying weapons weren't of a high grade and were a few levels lower than the god-slaying axe Xiaobai had swallowed, they had a lot of them. Quantity could cause quality to change. Just a puppet. Trash like an ant, die. Old Ling's eyes were cold. He roared, holding the halberd in his hand. Several meters around him rose up, and his true energy swept out. He stomped on the ground, and the ground collapsed. His body was sent flying. The halberd swept horizontally, and a terrifying gust of wind came grumblingly. Old Ling directly stormed toward Xiaobai. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's face was cold. However, his target wasn't Xiaobai. Although Xiaobai had smashed him with a stick, at this moment, he wanted to make Chu Changsheng hand over the inheritance. In the sky, Xiaobai's ash-gray eyes twinkled. Instantly, a black hole spun on his round belly. Xiaobai shoved a god-slaying weapon into that hole. Instantly, that weapon was smashed. Divine energy diffused everywhere, and Xiaobai quickly absorbed it. Seeing Old Ling dashing toward him, the spikes on Xiaobai's body became more ferocious. His fan-like hand rose, grabbing the war god stick. Then, Xiaobai stomped on the gold shrimp's back. Xiaobai's eyes brightened. Then, he turned into a jet of gold light, turning around to run away. His speed was as fast as lightning, as if he could break the sky. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song coldly looked at Chu Changsheng. Do you think they can save you? Chu Changsheng. It's useless. Hand over the valley of gluttony's inheritance. Chen Song pulled his bow, taking a step forward, aiming at Chu Changsheng, who had so many holes on his body. The light arrows congregated. A moment later, 3 light arrows shot toward Chu Changsheng. They were so fast that they created sonic booms and exploded the air. Chu Changsheng's eyes shrank. He wanted to dodge, but he couldn't. Swoosh! Blood splashed. Chu Changsheng's staggering body was shot one more time. A light arrow pierced through his body, nailing him to the ground. Chu Changsheng held the light arrow, gasping for his breath. This arrow had almost torn his body apart. Swish! The other 2 light arrows didn't slow down. They shot toward the judge's table with thunderous sounds and immense energy. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song coldly gazed at Hades' era. These 2 arrows were to test him. The terrifying pressure and strength that the Nether King had displayed for a brief moment had caused his entire body to stiffen, and he felt his heart palpitate a little. That kind of power. Logically, it shouldn't belong to this world. Thus, these 2 arrows were to test that fellow's real power. Was he just trying to be mysterious? Or did he really have the real power? These 2 arrows, he would know. Swish! Whistling sounds could be heard as the terrifying might caused the void to tremble. The two light arrows caused Bufong's hair to flutter in the wind. He furrowed his brows and turned his head to look. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's eyes widened. Blood streaks gathered in his pupils. He reached out his hand, spreading his fingers. Then he squeezed. Instantly, the two sweeping light arrows collided with each other, turning into a single light arrow, heading straight for Nether King Erha. At this moment, Hades' Era's chopsticks were shivering. It had been a long time. Finally, he could taste this delicious, spicy strip. Although he didn't eat the spicy strip directly, even if it was a dish with the flavor of the spicy strip, he still couldn't help himself. His chopsticks were getting closer and closer. His chopsticks fell, picking up a piece of bamboo shoot meat that was as clear as jade. Through the meat, he could see the steaming, oily, spicy strip. Oh my God! The Nether King took a deep breath, and his eyes became misty. All of a sudden, he felt a terrifying gust of wind attacking him. He couldn't help but lift up his head. That light arrow was dazzling and dazzling. Hades was bewildered when he saw it. Then he was enraged. Can't you let I eat my food? Do you want to make things difficult for I? Young people nowadays all like to court death that much. He opened his hand, his 5 fingers shooting, directly grabbing the light arrow with overflowing energy. Explosions echoed unceasingly, but the light arrow couldn't move forward anymore. Exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song's heart shrank when he saw that. Through the light arrow, he saw a pair of eyes that were so cold, as if they had stepped on thousands of corpses. Those eyes, exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song, didn't say anything. He turned around and fled. Chapter 749. Young people nowadays. Why do they want to court death so much? When Hades' Era said that, exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song didn't say anything. He turned around and didn't leave because he saw a pair of eyes shooting through the light arrow. Those eyes caused his mind to sway. He was incomparably terrified. That gaze made him feel a sense of danger. Thus, he didn't hesitate to turn around and leave. No matter how he looked at it, that young man in front of him wasn't someone he could resist. The other could catch his exterminating Sun Bao with just one hand. Not to mention him, even his second brother couldn't resist that attack. That was why he had to run away. He was afraid of death. Perhaps only his big brother, an existence at the half-step divine spirit realm, could deal with him. That man, even if he wasn't a sect master at the divine spirit realm, was at least a top expert at the half-step divine realm. That kind of almighty expert was the top expert even in the Holy Lands. Hades' Era grabbed the light arrow, talking coldly. A moment later, his eyes rolled. Nether energy shot out from his body. The light arrow shot back at a faster speed, aiming at exterminating Sun Bao Chun Song. Chun Song felt the whistling sound behind him. His entire body tensed. His hair fluttered as he roared, his eyes glaring. The exterminating Sun Bao in his hand radiated dazzling light. The tip of his foot touched the ground, and his body flew out like a swallow. Then he rose his hand, placing it on the exterminating Sun Bao. The light on the longbow was dazzling. As he pulled the bow, more light arrows shot out. Boom, boom, boom. Chun Song's arrow of light collided with the arrow of light that the Nether King had thrown back. The collision caused a violent explosion and tremor. Terrifying energy expanded from the center of the explosion. Chun Song was almost crazy, roaring unceasingly. All of a sudden, his eyes shrank. This was because he discovered that the arrow of light that was shot back was tainted with a trace of pitch-black gas. It was Nether energy. You're a creature from the Netherworld. Chun Song roared. His entire body was on the verge of exploding. The exterminating Sun Bao blocked in front of him, and the light arrow smashed onto it. Chun Song coughed up a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. His chest was pierced by the arrow, and the exterminating Sun Bao flew high into the air before landing on the ground with a thud. Chun Song staggered, his face pale. A netherworld creature. How could there be such a powerful creature? Could it be that the laws of the hidden dragon continent were all useless? What happened to stopping the living beings above the great void realm? What was going on with this terrifying existence in front of him? Song looked at the big hole in his chest. His face suddenly trembled violently. His body was shaking like a sieve, and blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Black chi was infecting his wounds, preventing his true chi from healing his body. It was indeed the evil nether energy of the netherworld creatures. Song's face was filled with despair. He turned around and directly fell to the ground. He opened his arms and tried to crawl forward, but it became extremely difficult. Rumble. Gloomy dark clouds gathered in the sky again. Hades' era picked up a piece of bamboo shoot wrapped in a spicy strip. Finally, he happily shoved it into his mouth. As soon as the bamboo shoot entered his mouth, it burst out instantly. The taste of the spicy strip made Hades' entire body soften. He chewed and opened his eyes. Looking at the dark clouds in the sky, the corners of his mouth twitched disdainfully. The Great Path's principle of the hidden dragon continent. It's like a ghost that won't go away. Nether King Erha chuckled, then retracted his aura. His whole body became ordinary, and he began to gorge on the plate of myriad living things. While eating, he nodded continuously. The other judges dropped their jaws in bewilderment. However, shortly after, they pulled themselves together. They reached out their chopsticks, picking up a piece of bamboo shoot and putting it in their mouths. The bamboo shoot was wrapped in a spicy strip. Thick vitality accompanied by essence energy surged torrentially, unceasingly attacking people's minds. They opened their mouths, and what came out of them was thick vitality. This feeling changed the faces of the people who had tasted the moonset crow's caw, which made them feel extremely sad. Exuberant vitality was the most prominent characteristic of this dish, and Bufong had vividly displayed this characteristic. Secondly, it was the taste, which was very special and different. The spring bamboo shoot was tender, and the bamboo shoot meat was fragrant. Together with the stir-fried spirit beast meat, people couldn't help but open their mouths to breathe in the spicy aroma. Because of the spicy aroma, people's mouths watered, and that delicious feeling made them unable to control themselves. They swallowed it. That spicy aroma entered their mouths, and the stimulating feeling of crossing the walls of their mouths made people's pores open, releasing hot air and vitality. The gloomy feeling was swept away. Because it was stir-fried, it still maintained the special aroma of the ingredients, which gave it a unique and excellent taste. Myriad living things. With one bite, people felt as if everything on earth was reviving. It was as if they were in a vast yellow plain, and suddenly a spring breeze came. Tender shoots broke out from the yellow soil, and a verdant green spread across the plain. It was full of vitality. The sixth elder narrowed his eyes. His lips, which were still stained with oil, suddenly rose into an exaggerated arc. His handlebar mustache twitched unceasingly. A smile unconsciously appeared on his face. This dish could make people feel happy both physically and mentally. His entire person seemed to relax a little. The sixth elder opened his eyes. His mentality seemed to have changed because of this dish. His aura changed slightly, and it seemed like he was about to break through. Mu Qing once again clamped her legs. That abundant vitality gushed out, making Mu Qing feel as if she was running on the prairie. Endless vitality shrouded her, and her heart, which was originally sad because of the invincible moonset crow, was now filled with joy and vitality. I told you that old boo's dish is delicious. Look at this taste, look at this spicy strip. It's simply invincible. Why do you still want to compete? Hades' era said as he picked up more food. Seizing the chance when the judges were immersed in their enjoyment, he quickly shoved the food into his mouth. Although the spicy strip was delicious, the other ingredients weren't bad, either. Hades' era didn't care about them, just sweeping them all into his mouth. His mouth was covered with oil. He didn't look like the one who had just shot Exterminating Sun Bao Chunsong. Exterminating Sun Bao Chunsong was dying. He was about to die. His body couldn't recover, as the black nether energy was eroding it unceasingly. His eyes were blurry, and his vitality was weakening. He knew he was going to die. However, he wasn't willing to die in the hands of a netherworld creature. His bow had killed so many netherworld creatures and pierced so many desperate, great, ethereal netherworld warriors' heads. However, he had never thought that one day he would die under his own exterminating sun bow. His own arrow killed him. Chun Song wasn't willing, but he didn't have the strength to stand up. Blood gushed, staining the exterminating sun bow. Instantly, the bow bloomed with radiance, shooting up into the sky. The radiance bloomed, projecting a phantom on the bow. It was a figure carrying a giant bow on his back. That giant bow was much more intimidating than the exterminating sun bow. Its pressure was much stronger. That phantom's eyes were like lightning. He opened his mouth, letting out an ear-piercing voice. His terrifying aura swept over the entire place. "Who dares to kill my brother?" Chun Song glanced over with difficulty and saw the shadow. His mind trembled and blood bubbled out of his mouth. "Big brother, save me." Chun Song struggled. Hope arose in his heart. That was his big brother's clone, the clone of an existence at the half-step divine soul realm. The doppelganger that might give him hope. The clone was enraged, his voice booming like thunder. His eyes were like torches. When he saw his third brother's pitiful appearance, he was enraged. However, a moment later, a huge pitch-black palm swept across the air. There was a loud explosion. The half-step divine soul realm clone was smashed into pieces, turning into energy and dispersing. Only his angry roar was left behind. Hades' era was stuffing spicy strips into his mouth, clapping his hands. Noisy flies affect I's appetite, especially when I'm eating spicy strips. So get lost. The Nether King's mouth was full of food as he mumbled. Chun Song fell on the ground, his face bewildered and desperate. It was the first time he felt so desperate. The hope he had just had was smashed in the next second. That feeling made Chun Song spit out a mouthful of blood. His head was immediately buried in the ruins, and he breathed his last. Chun Song, the almighty of the wavering light holy land, the owner of the exterminating sunbow, was dead. At the same time, wavering light holy land, a secret room suddenly exploded. A figure carrying a giant bow on his back stormed out with disheveled hair. He let out a painful shriek. "Valley of Gluttony! Damn you, Valley of Gluttony! My third brother, you died so miserably. I'm sure I'll take revenge for you." Boom! Another secret chamber exploded, and another figure carrying a bow on his back stormed out, his face sorrowful. The two of them roared indignantly at the same time. They took one step, shattering the void as they ran away. Heavenly secret holy land under the twinkling star compass. An old woman was walking with her walking stick. All of a sudden, her eyes focused on a dazzling star in the star compass. She exhaled gently. Her dark purple walking stick gently knocked on the ground. A moment later, a wisp of green smoke congregated behind the old woman, turning into a handsome figure. That figure was unrestrained. His shirt was open, and he was holding a black star compass. His face was lazy. "Emolyoji, I have something I need you to do," said the old woman. "If you need anything, ask the capable saintess to do it. I'm lazy, so I don't want to move." Emolyoji yawned, rubbing his exposed chest. "The saintess can't go. Only you can do it. Do you see the star compass? Isn't that the Valley of Gluttony that has stirred up the Holy Land recently? A lousy Valley of Gluttony's inheritance has stirred up many people in the Holy Land like fools," said Emolyoji disdainfully. The old woman turned around, looking at Emolyoji solemnly. "You should go to the Valley of Gluttony now. We don't want the inheritance, but I need you to bring back the person who can trigger the star compass." Emolyoji was bewildered. A moment later, his eyes narrowed, light flashing in them. "Granny Emo, tell me, how should I bring him back?" "It's okay, as long as I can bring him back. I have a premonition that he could be the saintess inner demon. If he's the inner demon, we need to kill him, said Granny Mo. Lioji's mouth twitched. He whistled and stepped out. The void cracked, and he flew away. All right, for the capable saintess, Her Highness. I'll have to go. I can also see the so-called inner demon of the saintess. At this moment, the entire hidden dragon royal court and all the holy lands were stirred. Chu Changsheng had bloody holes all over his body. However, since he had become an almighty, his recovery ability was strong. Although his body was full of bloody holes, he wasn't dead yet. Instead, he was slowly recovering. He walked in front of Bu Fong and Xiaoya, sighing softly. Xiaoya looked at him, who was covered in blood. She took a step back in fear. She looked at Bu Fong with a pleading look in her big eyes. Chu Changsheng turned his head to look at Bu Fong. He took a deep breath and said, "Owner Bu, let me borrow Xiaoya for a moment." Then, he didn't wait for Bu Fong's answer. He swung his arm, hugging Xiaoya. Slowly, he walked toward the exit of the Gluttony Gods building. I want Xiaoya to inherit the Valley of Gluttony's inheritance. I can't let anyone take it away. Bu Fong frowned, looking at Chu Changsheng's back. A moment later, he said indifferently, "Stop. I'm going with you." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.